はい、ありがとうございます。失礼します。One second, guys. I'm going to quick speak Japanese a little bit, just so everybody who's watching can know. 皆様、おはようございます。本日は24時間のHiVEの24時間のライブイベントなので、今回のセッションは英語なんですけど、質問とかもあれば、ぜひぜひコメントにしていただいて、翻訳できるので、ぜひぜひお願いします。よろしくお願いします。これから英語をしますので、よろしくお願いします。Okay. So, sorry, from now on, we're going to be using English for the English session. Good morning to Japan. Good evening in America. Welcome to the HiVE 24-hour LIVEATHON. My name is Gino Gordon. I'll be your moderator. I'll be hosting this session called Current State of Sports and Brand Activation. We have a great lineup today with some guys with unique backgrounds, and I'll go through a quick introduction really quickly. First, we have the 5-time MLB All-Star, 4-time Golden Glove, and current Oryx Buffalo, Adam Jones. Good to see you, Adam. And then we also have two people that I actually work really, really closely with, the two founders of Red Phoenix Entertainment, Leif Rogers and David Noel. So Leif has about over 20 years experience doing international business in China and East Africa. And then David has around 10 years of experience as an entrepreneur and international business consultant. So together they started Red Phoenix Entertainment, where they help athletes, teams, and sports organizations build their brand in international markets. As for what we're talking about today, we'll be discussing how COVID has negatively affected the sports industry, but also created new opportunities to utilize digital media and sponsorship. So actually, David has created a short presentation and to update us on what's been going on with COVID. And from now, I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint and let him take it away. All right, so please give me 1 second, guys. Oops. Probably should have left this. Okay, so obviously it probably would have been better to have these pictures on there, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to David right here.
All right. Thank you so much, Gino, for that introduction. And first and foremost, I just wanted to thank HiVE for putting on this webinar. We've been really excited to be a part of it. And a huge shout out to Adam Jones for taking the time to be with us here. I know a lot of people are going to be really excited to hear from him. So I'll keep my part as short as possible. But again, thank you very much for this opportunity. All right, so really quickly, I'll just explain a bit about what Red Phoenix does and who we are as a company. And really what we're focused on is launching global strategy for brands, teams, athletes, and entertainers. In other words, we've really become a bridge company to help connect American professional sports and entertainment with Asian markets. We do that in a few different ways. We help brands, entertainers, athletes, et cetera, plan and manage international growth strategies. We help them activate international social media in various markets in Asia. We source global endorsements and sponsorships, and we execute media, film, and event productions. Really what sets us apart from other companies is that we have proven experience, number one, in bridging international cultures. As Gino mentioned, Leif had spent over 15 years or so in China. I had extensive experience in China as well. We've been quite active here in Japan over the last few years. We really pride ourselves on trying to build strong connections between global brands and talent. And most importantly is our network of trusted service providers. And so anybody who has done extensive international business knows that you can't do it alone and you really need local partners. And that's what we're all about. Okay, so just very quickly, a snapshot of some of the projects we've worked on. We have worked with MVPs from across every major American sport. Again, we worked with brands, sports teams, pretty exciting thing lately is we've been doing quite a bit with esports and some national teams, such as the Chinese Olympic boxing team. But again, athletes, brands, and sports teams are all our clients, and we try to connect people from across sports. Let's go ahead. All right, and so really what I'd like to talk about today is, how has COVID impacted sports in general? I think we can all agree that 2020 has been quite an interesting year, and it's been pretty difficult in sports. First and foremost is for sports fans. Audiences up until, very recently haven't been able to directly interact with teams. For the most part, haven't been able to go into stadiums. A pretty cool thing I saw in Japan recently is the SoftBank Hawks actually subbed in robot fans, which in America we thought was pretty cool, and I wish some of our sports leagues would do the same. But for the most part, audiences are really still lacking that engagement. Teams have been taking quite a big hit. No games has meant less visible opportunities for sponsors. Of course, they haven't had the same kind of ticket sales, if at all, which has really impacted their bottom lines. And so this loss of revenue has really left them in a tough place. Brands are left without a proven tool for connecting with their audiences. And as we all know, brands really like to take out sponsorships and kind of do traditional endorsements and sponsorships with and around sports that rely on people kind of congregating together. And without, with COVID really disrupting the way that people are moving about, it's put brands in a tight spot where they really need to figure out what the next step is. So what's the situation in global sports today? I'll give you just a very quick recap. Taiwan and Korea were actually the first to kind of kick off professional sports this year, back in the spring with baseball. In Korea right now, there is a plan to have fans, but as of right now, I believe there still are no fans. And when they do bring them in, they're looking at filling the stadiums at about 30% cap. Over in China with the CBA, they started up in June. It's been pretty cool to watch China. They've handled the COVID situation fairly well. And so now you're starting to see teams actually move across the country and play each other. They're starting to limit the number of fans who can actually visit the games. And pretty cool, if you look on this picture on the left here, you'll actually see a big, large screen TV where they've actually kind of injected fans into the stadium. And this is just as much for the players to really get that sense of a spectator sport as it is for anything. Big news here in the U.S. today, the MLB started, which we're all happy about. But it's been quite a road to get there. The NHL is set to start in the beginning of August. What's interesting about the NHL is they're actually skipping the rest of the regular season and going straight into the playoff qualifiers. All of those matches will be held up in Canada. So they're kind of doing this bubble model, which rolls into the NBA, actually. The NBA is practicing right now in Orlando. They're in this quote-unquote NBA bubble where they've really limited the interaction with the outside world in the attempt to really control COVID and make sure that nobody gets sick. The NFL, they're kind of keeping quiet, but as far as we know, they're still in negotiations. They're moving towards the season, and as of right now, there won't be preseason games. Final point on this, what I find pretty interesting is the difference between the U.S. and Asia and how and when sports have started up. Obviously, the U.S. hasn't been the best with handling the coronavirus, and so we've really had to adopt kind of this bubble model where we seclude the teams and the players, and we'll see how that works out. But it's been encouraging to watch places like Japan and China and Korea really get their leagues up and running.
Okay.
Quick snapshot of Japan sports. So as we all know, NPB is back and playing. There's been a limited amount of fans allowed into the stadiums. The J League also had started last month, I believe, with limited fans. Sumo is back in action. Again, they're limiting the amount of fans who are allowed in. As far as I know, X League, football and basketball are not playing quite yet, but we're hoping that they do come back. And across Japan, it's been pretty standard to, number one, limit the amount of fans who are allowed into the arenas. Number two, to require face masks. And number three, to do some sort of screener or check on fans before they come into the stadium. All right. So how are athletes engaging with fans and brands now? Well, athletes are just like us, and they're socially distancing as well. Primarily, if they're not practicing and playing, they're staying home with their families, and this has created kind of a unique opportunity for athletes to start branching out and leveraging technology to reach their core audiences, to engage with brands. And so we've seen some pretty exciting movement in this space. In esports, you've got guys like Trevor May from the MLB, Juju Smith-Schuster from the NFL, who are very active playing video games and streaming across Twitch and YouTube and picking up endorsements, etc. Webinars and podcasts. Actually, Adam, who's with us here tonight, launched a podcast where they speak about sports, social issues, other pressing topics. A really good opportunity to, again, connect with fans in kind of this new digital age. Mark Ingram from the NFL is another example. He's actually partnered up with the NFL Players Association, and they're doing virtual workouts from home. And it's a really cool opportunity for fans to see how an NFL player works out. Social media. Rui Hachimura recently did a Twitter stream bilingually, speaking to both American and Japanese audiences. You've got guys like Mookie Betts, who just landed a huge contract, by the way, with the MLB. But right before the Korean baseball season started up, he did a big outreach campaign where he was basically praising different players from the various Korean teams, speaking in Korean and just celebrating Korean culture. And so, again, this has been kind of a cool opportunity to see athletes push beyond what they traditionally might be doing in a non-COVID world. So that really brings us into what is the opportunity. We know that things are shaken up, right? Audiences are dying for sports content. They're dying for anything that they can really engage with. Brands desperately need to reach new audiences, and athletes are more willing to, again, use and leverage virtual and technology to actually reach these audiences. So what we see is this is actually a huge opportunity for brands to start working with athletes and harnessing the power of technology, harnessing the power of digital platforms to actually start reaching their audiences in new ways. Quick snapshot. So in the past, when you think about sponsorship endorsements, a lot of people think of somebody's face plastered on a big billboard, in a major city. And the reason for that is when you can't target your customer base completely, you go for the biggest, most famous athlete you can think of and hope that enough people see that billboard. Those type of sponsorships are usually a year plus in length. They can cost quite a bit of money. They're usually pretty big in scope. But with the COVID situation, those type of endorsements are not as relevant anymore. And we're starting to see more of these kind of short-term, nimble, virtual endorsements. Maybe an athlete is actually filming himself or herself from their own home. Maybe they're doing a workout program, whatever it might be. And it's oftentimes distributed through social media. That's another great thing right now is social media enables us to really micro-target our followers, and so you don't necessarily need a big billboard anymore. You can really hone in on who your audience is. The ROI for brands is a lot more measurable now because you can measure it from social engagement, number of clicks, number of sales, etc. And consequently, this has actually led to lower price points across the board. So right now, it's an amazing time for brands to leverage sports marketing. And I'll wrap up my part of the presentation by just giving out a few examples of this. So Juju Smith-Schuster, who I mentioned before, recently did an endorsement with Castrol motor oil, where he's actually working out in his garage. This was being streamed over YouTube and over Instagram. A really cool one, this picture in the middle is actually Walmart and LeBron James and a host of other celebrities teamed up to provide virtual summer camps. And so at least in the US, summer camp is a big thing. It's a big rite of passage for American children during the summertime. And with COVID, you can't go to summer camp anymore. So what Walmart has provided is this virtual summer camp. And LeBron James is actually one of the camp counselors, and he's leading the kids in athletic programs and arts and crafts, et cetera. And it's a very unique, creative way to engage with an audience. Finally, Adrian Peterson from the NFL has been quite active with some startups. He does a weekly giveaway. This is one example of Some Sleep. And really why this is a good example is because it shows that somebody who's even MVP caliber is working with smaller startup brands and helping them to reach their core audiences through virtual means. And of course, there's a host of other examples as well. But in short, what we see here is this is a golden opportunity for brands globally to engage with their fans, engage with their core audiences using sports. And maybe this is a better time for brands like in Japan to engage with American sports and entertainment than ever before. Again, because of those lower price points, and more importantly, because of the accessibility and the use of technology. And that is all I have for today. But if anybody has further questions, please follow Adam Jones, who we'll hear from in a bit, on his social media platforms. And if you'd like to connect with us, please reach out.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll turn this off. And so, we'd actually like to open up the floor a little bit. I could see there's already a plethora of questions coming through, but really quickly, let's turn to Adam really quickly. And obviously, we've talked a little bit about how professional athletes are directly reaching out to or directly connecting with fans kind of through digital media. And you obviously have, you've been pretty outspoken on various civil rights movements and stuff like that. But then also you have this podcast where you're actually able to directly do something like that. So what's your motivation for doing that? What was this purpose? Can you give a little bit of a background on that?
Well, I think what's going on in the entire world right now, it just, I think a lot of people want to hear from the athletes. Obviously, the union speaks for us in the majority of the conversations, because players don't want to, come off in any sort of way to the fans, especially right now, because a lot of people are unemployed with the 40 million, if not, I don't even really know the accurate number, but in that range of unemployment. You don't want to hear about athletes, we're not able to play, when obviously a lot of them have financial stability. And so they don't want to come off as being brash or cocky or not caring about society. And my podcast is more just like, look, you think of the Mike Trouts, the Mookie Betts, you think of all those guys in Major League Baseball, and then obviously the LeBrons, and then the NFL guys, that every athlete's just loaded and swimming in cash, when the actual truth is, you got 2,500 minor league baseball players that aren't getting paid this year, or they end up getting paid, but it's $400 a week. Unemployment makes more than that. So you think that other players are going to come back because they're getting more in unemployment? What if they're in low A, high A, to where they're like, I'm making more money doing this, and it might be time to delve off into a real career, because making the major leagues might not be a foreseeable goal, especially with the cutting of 42 minor league teams. So me personally, I just wanted to give fans an opportunity to understand what it's really like to be an athlete. I've been successful, but at the same time, I know 50 people that are not in my shoes, 50 people that have sacrificed the same things I've sacrificed, but have not been able to capitalize monetarily on it. So, just trying to give the athletes perspective, because everybody, that saying, the spoiled millionaires and all that. And I'm like, the truth is, the majority of players are not millionaires. The majority of players are not getting those big lucrative deals. The majority of the players are grinding away. Even if they can play 15 years of professional ball, they might get 3 at the highest level, but people don't really see that. They just see, the average salary is $4.5 million in Major League Baseball. Well, if you count the 30 guys making 30 million, of course, it's going to drive the number up. But if you look at the guys that are just continually grinding at the bottom, you see a big difference. And I just try to give a unique perspective into the life of a baseball player, because I can't talk about the NFL or the NBA or hockey or tennis because I don't particularly know them, but just try to give them a unique perspective of how baseball is. And I've had some guests on that explained it, and people still don't want to listen to it because they want their own. They always want to control the narrative and certain things, but just try to throw some truth into the matter, and that not all athletes are rich. Some are, but the majority of them are not. As we all know, we all got athlete friends.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you're really giving them a clear view of what it's like to be an athlete, and I think that's the biggest thing with fans and everything. You don't really necessarily understand. You see the lights, you see kind of everything that's going around football, or sorry, I'm a football player, around the sport. But you don't necessarily see all the things going on in kind of in the dark, or that when the lights are off. And people think about training, but also there's the thing about making a living for yourself. So that's a really good point. Looks like we got a fan that just came out and said hi right here. You see on the bottom.
Morning.
Yeah. But yeah, that's actually a really good point. So you're really giving kind of like that kind of raw view of everything, and I think that is.
I'm really not sugarcoating it.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to sugarcoat. I think right now people are tired of the conventional answers, so I'm just trying to not sugarcoat anything. Like, this is how it is. You guys don't like it. I mean, we're athletes. It's a very, very hard job. People can do your job. It's not there's a lot of jobs that are in the world that are not that hard to do. Sorry to say. Mm-hmm. And people jump on the athletes because we're not playing. And I got so many friends with the MLB PA, and I like reading the comments just to see the temperature of the fans, because the fans are the most important thing going on with the game. There are supporters. They are obviously they're the people that you go out there and play for. You want to hear the cheers. You want to hear the roar of the crowd. If it's good or bad, you want that energy. Fans bring you energy. And like here in Japan, we got the fans back. And you can just clearly see the night and day difference. The first 3 weeks without fans, it's just like playing in a morgue, and now you got some fans, you got some reaction. So it's like, it's fulfilling. Obviously, they're not as loud. They can't be as rambunctious as I've heard in the past because of the social distancing, because they don't want people moving up and down. But it's good to have a crowd. It's good to hear people cheering. It's good to hear some clapping.
Yeah. Well, here we actually have a question specifically about the fans. I'm going to show you right here. So please tell us if you have any impressive episodes from interacting with a Japanese fan. Obviously, I think to give you a little bit more context, I think but to give a little bit more context, I think one thing that's legendary about Japan sports is their fans. So if you look at the World Cups or any of these type of things, you see like the fans are extremely, I would say just nice. See them cleaning up the stadium. And I've had some experience as well of being able to just say, these guys are extremely nice to me. I've gotten these wonderful, like, handwritten notes when I was playing as a professional athlete. So have you had any episodes like that where you had some, this is, great experience type of moments?
When I first got here, we first got to Miyazaki. It was probably 2 weeks before we ended up meeting. And so walking into the ballpark every morning, and there's fans there. And what was great is like they all had like little gifts, and the majority of them were like chocolates. Mm-hmm. And I love me and my interpreter was like, yeah, let's take a picture, let's hug them. This is all before the COVID broke out, so I'm glad I didn't contract anything. But my experiences so far have been great. Everybody's been really nice. They've been welcoming, saying thank you for coming over here, and support. Obviously, they want. They want you to, fight. That's how they say fight, cycle. They want you to, win today. Is kind of their motto, and everything's been good. The people have been very positive. I've got a lot of messages on social media about, thank you for coming here. But, help Oryx win, and the organization has been great in that regards also. So I just want to see, that full capacity. I think I've gotten the first game against SoftBank in spring training, like sold out crowd. You've seen everything go crazy, and then the next day everything went dark. So I just want to get back to normalities and experience the full effect of the fans here, and the full effects of all the cities opening, and the full effect of what the NPB and what Japan has to offer. Because it's, from what I heard from friends that have played here for so long, it's remarkable.
Yeah, it really is. It really is a remarkable thing to see. I went to a few games in the Tokyo Dome, and there's nothing like seeing kind of like the fervent fans with each of their songs, and their little quirks in terms of, and it's a really amazing thing to see. So yeah, hopefully as things kind of progress, you'll be able to see that. There's actually one. It's funny how you kind of talked about the stadium a little bit, but there's one question right here. How do you feel about the difference between NPB ballparks and the MLB ones from the standpoint of the player?
Oh, night and day.
Yeah.
oh no, man! Every time we walk into a road ballpark, I text my wife and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. The accommodations aren't the same. I was like, this is like, it was like, it's not the same. But I came here, so I'm embracing it. I'm like, this is reverting all the way back to like high A, double A ball. These locker rooms, I can't really do it. But I'm here, and I'm like, my wife's like, well, you can go home and sit on the couch. I'm like, oh, here you go, Debbie Downer over here. But she's true. She's honest. My opportunities in the States were limited, so take it for what it's worth, and just I'm just trying to embrace everything. Everything I'm seeing is for the first time. Every new ballpark is for the first time. Every pitcher I'm facing is for the first time. So, it's basically taking me back to my rookie year. Just embrace the change, embrace everything that's coming your way. It's easy to be like, well, I played in the major leagues for all these years, and this is how we did it there. Well, not in the major leagues. You walk out in the stadium, English is not being spoken. English is not on the billboards. So just embrace everything that's coming my way. And I think by having that mindset has really helped me do it. And I've had some friends, again, like I said, have just told me this is things to expect. These are the temperature and how they handle business here. A different style of baseball. So just embrace everything. It's not going to be the same as what you've seen. It's not waiting for the 3-run home run. It's playing for the 1-run that inning. It's just the style is completely different. So just embrace it. And by having that mindset, it's made everything easier, because it's easy to complain. It's sometimes you just want to know, well, they don't do this, and I wish we did this. Like, I'm not the manager. I'm not the style. They've been playing this game for a long time over here, and I'm just here to help and enjoy it and eat a lot of food.
Well, it's two things. Hey, Japan has great food, by far one of the best. But that's a really good point that you said. It's kind of that adaptability, and that's something that I feel like is extremely important, especially when you're in Japan. It's like being adaptable to be able to say, hey, like I'm coming from a different area. I need to be able to know when to push, when not to push. And that's kind of like that a little bit, that's that understanding the culture, but then also just being able to be adaptable. And actually, I'm going to bring this over onto the business side, because this is actually a very good segue. Leif, actually, there's one question for you. Obviously, you've had a lot of experience in kind of international business, especially in China. So, can you talk a little bit about kind of what are some of like the cultural obstacles in terms of maybe legal or business that you have run into in your experience?
Yeah, sure. So many of the deals that Red Phoenix when we first began were just business or endorsement or sponsorships that failed from the two sides communicating. It's a big problem. It's odd for someone that grew up overseas, that we're such a global and connected world, that these problems are so prevalent and exist in the forefront. But it's a great thing, because that's why my company exists. It can be, and a lot of it I blame on the American side. They tend to lump Asia in a group when every country is different, but there's also expectations and it's more of an innocence from the Asian brands or the Asian sponsors that this is their first time working with a high caliber athlete. And, of course they want the most out of it. And so this is where we try to step in. And again, and a lot of our first deals were where an endorsement or a commercial or whatever it is that completely collapse. And we step in and manage both the expectations from both sides and help bridge those two. On what's perfect about my partner David is I grew up in East Africa, as you mentioned, in Papua New Guinea, and then pretty much spent my whole working life in Asia. I tend to lean much heavier for the Asian brands. The American legal system and how it just drives me nuts. The fact that you can't get on the phone and call somebody here and, it's just email. I know these are pain points for Asian brands. And so I tend to lean heavy and protective on the Asian side, and David's really good on the American side, balancing that out. So it's sad that exists, but it's why our company exists, and we try to manage we always say the nonsense from both sides.
Exactly, and it's really, I think to everybody's point a little bit is that it's not necessarily just the business aspect, but the culture, kind of the internal culture behind it is what causes some of these frictions, and you can see it kind of manifest itself on the baseball side. You can see it manifest itself on the business side as well. So being able to find companies that's able to kind of be that intermediary, I think is really important. And like I said, adaptability is key.
Yeah, and Adam clearly gets it. I mean, he just said that he didn't come over here and say, hey, this isn't how you do it, and are trying to change the system or whatever. He respects their history of the game and how they play it and is trying to do his part. And that's what I feel more American brands, teams, and companies should do as well.
Exactly. So it looks like we got one question for you, Adam. Let's see, I'll post it up right here. How has COVID been affecting your life training in Japan so far? What made you decide to play in the NPB? That's a pretty bad question, so I'll let you handle that one.
Well, I can start by saying, the latter question is what made me decide to play for MVP is, going into the off season of 2018, I didn't really have any offers. I didn't end up signing until March 13th of 19, where the teams were 3 weeks away from opening day. And, I was sitting at home training, but with no job. So as the season progressed, I was talking to my agent about just possibilities. You never know what life happens. How many years do I want to play? And then once the off season happened, Oryx reached out, and I was like, this is the first time. And some athletes get to do this, is to control their own narrative and control their own career. I've had plenty of friends. I'm sure we all have friends in the industries that have had to just go away, right off in the sunset, not necessarily on their own terms. Not everybody's gonna have the Kobe RIP, his kind of, those kind of farewells, the David Ortiz farewells, the CC Sabathia farewells. That just don't happen. The Peyton Manning farewells. Those are so few and far in between. So I was just like, this is the first time I can control my career. I can control anything about what I want to do. If I want to retire, I can retire. If I want to go play, I can go play. And it's not like it's not chasing money. This is chasing opportunity, chasing experience. And when I came over here, like me and my wife, she was like, let's go. Let's get out of here. Because I said she lived in Paris as a kid for a couple of years. So having that international experience is just marvelous. And then for our boys, it made total sense to where it's like, it's not just about me and my career anymore. It's more about the experiences I can give to my family, my friends. Obviously, and then the COVID stuff, it's halted in terms of my parents, my family being able to come out here. Friends, once they see me signed over here, are like, hey, we're going to Japan because we want to see you play. And then it's like an opportunity to go see a whole brand new culture, a brand new country. And but I think the COVID stuff, I think it's just really, it halted the game. It's, obviously we started mid-June. But I think right now over here in Japan, while everything is open back up, it's been great. Been able to go out and get some food, tour Osaka a little bit. Obviously on the road, we're a little bit restricted on what we can do because they want to just, limit our activities outside. But in Osaka, we're able to go out, found this great Mexican restaurant. I haven't trusted any sushi yet, which is kind of like, weird. But I've gotten some really high-end recommendations, and when we get back to Osaka after this road trip, we got a couple of days off, so I'm gonna dibble in some sushi. But right now we're in Sendai, where they say the seafood's great, and then we go to Sapporo, where they say the seafood's great. So I might have to bend the rules a little bit and go get myself some sushi.
Yeah, you should probably do that. And I guess at the end of the day, you're not gonna go wrong in sushi anywhere in Japan. I feel as though, because I've had some hole in the wall places, and it's been great. Some of the best I've ever had. So when you get back to Tokyo, I'll definitely take you to some spots as well. Actually, I had a really interesting question that just came up, Adam, for you. So I'll bring it up right here. I heard you love donuts. I would like your opinion on Mr. Donuts in Japan. I'm not sure if you've had it before yet, but it's a pretty popular kind of donut chain. And then whether or not you have been in contact with them for a brand deal.
I've tried them. I don't want to give my opinion until they like completely X if a deal is possible. I don't want to say anything that'll get me in trouble. If they want to do a deal, hey, donut is marvelous.
Please, hey, if
I've had it one time in Miyazaki. Yeah,
okay.
But they're not. I mean, they're not so big on donuts out here. In every other corner in the States, you get a Dunkin' or local donuts or whatever. Yum Yums in San Diego, Randy's in LA. Yeah, I know Shipley's in Dallas. So I know the donut places across the United
States. Nice. Dave, actually, I got one question for you. Actually, let me just go ahead and find it. Okay, so it's going back a little bit to the kind of the Red Phoenix model, and one of the problems that you guys do solve is kind of getting access to these global athletes. I think that's one thing in Japan where the market itself is very insular, and it's actually really difficult to. There's definitely a wall in between where it's hard to get in and it's hard to get out. So obviously, with your guys' experience in China doing these type of cross-border deals, how do you kind of solve these problems of accessing these global athletes for domestic brands? And I think that's something, brands in Japan would love to know about, kind of,
That's a great question. I mean, first of all, you heard from Adam himself. I mean, the share of these kind of big sponsorships and endorsements are kind of going towards some of the most famous athletes, and there's a lot of guys and women out there who have huge brands themselves, who have really dedicated followers, and they're not necessarily getting all of the requests from brands. And I think that's kind of, there's two parts to that. I think one, brands don't really, to your point, know how to access athletes or even how to approach it, especially if they're international. The second part is, I'm not here to speak ill about agents by any means, but the traditional model is you kind of pursue what has the highest price tag, and then you don't really focus as much on the rest. And so what we've really tried to do is two things. One, we've really tried to focus on bringing opportunities to all types of athletes, because again, there's so much brand value to anybody who's playing professionally. In terms of getting access, it's not as hard as you think. I think the challenge for maybe a Japanese brand or any brand is, how do you communicate what you're actually asking for, right? How do you really know what it is that you want? Do you first understand who your target market is and what you're trying to do? And if you know that, or if somebody can help you figure that out, then it's easy to then bring it to an agency or to a player directly or whatever it might be. That's really where we've added a lot of value, is helping to kind of translate literally and figuratively what those needs are back and forth on both sides, and really help to build that bridge so that deals can happen. So I guess what I would say is that brands can access athletes. Just know what you want, or at least have an idea, and don't be afraid to pursue it. And I think there are a lot of people out there who would love to take part in endorsing products and services.
Yeah. Interesting. Actually, so I have one follow-up question to Leif, and kind of in a similar vein. I think it's a common notion, especially see like the athletes are really out of every brand's budget, and obviously David mentioned this a little bit before. So, what are your thoughts on the idea that like most global athletes are actually too expensive to actually get a hold of? Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they can be expensive. I mean, we all hear about the, Federer, Uniqlo, and these huge deals, and it kind of just takes all those, non-Coca-Cola, Nike, and any brand that's a tier 2 and just, well, we can't access that or afford that, and walk away. And it also follows, to David's point, that traditional model of contacting Dentsu, who then contacts the agency, the CAA or whatever it is, in Wasserman or in the US. Everybody's adding their price point, and the agency in America is saying, well, Adam's not going to work for any less than $3 million on anything, and the phone gets hung up. And so we really try to, from the beginning, we've tried to go directly to the athlete, and there's not a lot of companies out there that are bringing Asian deals. So we kind of were able to establish that connectivity and a reputation fairly quickly. And so we became a value add to the agencies here, and they would at least listen. As this has progressed, athletes themselves, half the time they don't ever get to hear about what the, what the proposal is. And, if their agent doesn't, so we try to eliminate all that and find the athlete that fits the brand the best. It's what they want, and we know will work well with whatever that format is, and go directly to the athlete or the agent and say, this is a way of expanding your brand globally, etc. The points that David brought up about COVID and how this has accelerated, that transition was happening anyway. The big billboards and all that, they're just not cost effective, and brands want a better ROI. They want better results. They want to target demographics. And for example, we were talking to a drink brand this afternoon that we presented some tier 1 athletes, and they're a startup, and they're like, no, we want more accessible kind of tier 2, tier 3 levels, because they're going to do more for our brand, and we're able to target, through what the sport is, a specific demographic. So we try to fit that. And then, the accessibility is so huge. I mean, Adam Jones is one of the best baseball players of my lifetime. I watched him with the Mariners. I saw him, become a 5-time All-Star in Baltimore. And, how many of us thought that we would be sitting here today, on a Japanese webinar talking to Adam Jones? And so Japanese brands need to take advantage of that accessibility while they can. And because it might not happen next year or the year after that. Also, if I was talking to an American brand on behalf of Adam, he's much more valuable now than he was when he was in Baltimore, because he's now a global brand accessing Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and all of that fan base in America. And you should be using him right now. And that's where I'd appeal to both sides.
Exactly. So, Mr. Donut, we're waiting on you.
Tully's Coffee.
Tully's Coffee. We're waiting on you. Okay, thanks, Leif. That was a really, really, really great answer. I'm glad these are great things, because we're getting so many different perspectives, kind of on the business side, on the player side, especially when it comes to branding. It's huge, especially like a guy like Adam, or who's had experience of doing really well in both leagues, and now you have kind of like that. You become that global athlete, and to be quite frank, there's really not too many of those, So being able to do that is huge. Actually, there was one question for you, Adam, a little bit more about yourself. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? That 5-year question.
Ooh, there's always that, huh? To be honest with you, I know my body has a couple years left, maybe not 5, but I'm gonna try and push it and play as long as I can. I have a 3rd-year option, but I see in 5 years, hopefully I'm coaching my kids, and maybe managing back in the big leagues. For some reason, the last couple of years, I was like bullish on the fact that I don't really want to manage. I don't know, but I don't know. There's something I got too much information in my brain and strategy, and I want to manage at some capacity. In the major leagues, not necessarily, probably not over here, but in the major leagues, I would like to dibble and dabble at the managing. But at the same time, I want to play out here and I want to travel. I haven't had a summer off since I was probably 11 years old. So my wife is adamant about, when you're done, we're gone. We're seeing the whole world. So, you know, I want to give her that opportunity to just see everything that we can see, especially in the summertime. You see all your friends, and obviously not this year, but majority of the time, 4th of July's and Memorial Days and the whole summer, they're on a boat somewhere. And I'm on the field sweating, hot in the uniform. So I want to be on the boat. Exactly. I want to be on that boat. I want to jump in the lake and stuff like that. And, you know, just live, really. You know, baseball has consumed so much of my life. Even in the off season, it consumes. I have to make sure that my workouts are in order before I even plan a trip. So just be able to be free from everything and just live, travel.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you've been doing it for so long and at such a high level. You got to be able to eventually just say, "Hey, I need some time to be me," and figure out who I am. So, but that's a good dream. That's also a good dream to have, though, in terms of not dream, but goal to have for being a manager. Obviously, seeing more individuals like yourself in management would be a welcome sight. You know,
big time. I mean, be a GM, be assistant to the GM. Have some sort of power, have some sort of pull, be able to control some sort of narrative, and you know, add my expertise. You know, I've done it for a while. I've seen it, you know, and then but really learn the philosophies. Learn, you know, as a player, you're just like, well, I'm good. I want to play hard. I want to win. I want to do X, Y, Z. But on the front office side of it, they have a completely different philosophy, and I want to learn. I want to learn what they're thinking. You know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100%. And that brings it, you know, to another side of kind of like the business of the sport. So, yeah, that is really interesting. Let's see if they have a couple other questions. I think there's a few things that probably they want to know about you, Adam, in terms of what's been going on with COVID. What's been the situation at Odix about kind of like COVID? How are they managing you guys? What are some of the precautions that they're taking?
Well, we just had our second test. We should have the results back. And if they haven't knocked on your door or taken you on the side, I'm assuming that you don't have it. So they've been temperature checking us every day when we enter the ballpark on the home and road. You know, they've restricted us going out on the hotels. They don't want us going out to different eateries or anything like that. We can go out for walks, nice long walks around the city. Who wants to do that? You know, you want to go to a restaurant or a bar or something like that.
Yeah.
Just go a long walk, but they just encourage you to wear your mask, and I think they got it really under control. It's just, you know, you just can't venture out so much, and I understand the rules, so I'm just trying to follow the rules and do my part. Pretty much, I'm not trying to be a problem with it. I'm just trying to do my part.
No, of course, that definitely makes sense. So is there, I mean, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the MLB and what they're doing in terms of COVID. Are there any major differences, or have you heard of any major differences?
Say it one more time.
Like how the MLB is actually handling COVID, and David, you can actually chime in if you want as well, or David, if you can chime in as well, like how MLB and the NPB, the differences in how they're kind of handling COVID. Have you heard anything from kind of your friends in there about, you know, any major differences?
I mean, one of my good friends is one of the clubhouse guys in Baltimore, and he's just saying like the social distancing, everything is weird. There's, you know, a clubhouse that's usually fit for 45 guys. You got 12 guys there. Umpires' rooms are being used. Visitors are being used. It's just everybody's spread out. They have one of the best chefs I've ever had in my life in any kind of thing, and she's not able to cook in the facility. She has to make it somewhere else and then bring it in to-go boxes. It's just they've really adapted to social distancing like to the max, and obviously with them starting you know, an hour ago, I think that it's a good sign that they're back, because summer's for baseball. So we only get 3 months of uninterrupted other sports, because basketball playoffs take off the first 2 months of the season, and then September you get football rolling in, so people really don't care so much about baseball. But we get June, July, and August, so we're really trying to maximize that, and it's great that it's back. But it's I think how MPB's handling is a little bit different than MLB. Obviously, MLB is a much bigger business. You know, they're talking $10 billion business. So, you know, I just think that, you know, talking to my friends, they're glad to be back. And you know, the thing is health. You know, a lot of people have young kids at home, have, you know, elderly parents or aunties, grandparents who are still alive. And they're just trying to make sure that they keep them, not just themselves, safe, because say we're athletes, we're in our 20s and 30s, we think that we're invincible, but it's not about us. It's about people who aren't as invincible, people who have, like, I wouldn't want to be around my mom right now. I love her, I really do, but I don't because of certain underlying health issues. I want to be around my mother-in-law or my father-in-law or older aunties because, you know, something simple can turn into something big for them. So I just think that, you know, like what the NBA is doing with the bubble, it's going to be tough for athletes to sit in one spot for a long time. But at the same time, if you're doing your part, hopefully it could all go away and we could just have a better 2021. Hopefully, trying to get at.
Yeah, you can definitely want to redo 2020 if we could. Definitely. It looks like we got one other question that came in just for you, Adam. It said, you go, AJ, what's the good athlete role model you think? So any type of, do you have any, you know, we can open this up a little bit, not just to baseball. Do you have any role models,
Right.
you know, like who is someone that you look up to and kind of why and how?
I mean, obviously growing up, Tony Gwynn was my role model because of baseball, my love for the game. Mark McLemore has been my mentor throughout my whole entire career. He's just led me in the right path in terms of what a career can look like, the family aspect, the financial aspect, off the field, handling family, friends, handling associates, handling the fans, just life in general. And you know, I think for athletes, you have a unique platform, especially in today's era with social media. A lot of things that you say, especially if you have the social media. That's why I like Kawhi. He got no social media, so nothing he says can get misconstrued or nitpicked at. But for the majority of athletes that have social media, you know, use the platform in a good way. You know, sometimes you get angry. Don't post that stuff on social media because it's never a good sight when you see, you know, an angry athlete posting, you know, dang this and dang that, cussing out the fans or anything like that, because the fans are a big part of the social media experience, and you have to take the good with the bad. So I just think that athletes have a unique platform, and not just athletes, you know, businessmen, people who have the opportunity to impact others. And, you know, like I said, like David in life have the opportunity to impact others also. So even if they have views in certain ways, it's definitely not the best place to go in social media and go on these rants as you see, you know, with certain athletes right now, the retired or current, that, you know, getting these Twitter arguments. You can't cure stupid. Was that one the saying like that?
Yeah, I understand. So it looks like I think we have time for one more question. This is actually for you, David and Leif. It's like question for David and Leif. What are the opportunities you see for Taiwan specifically right now? I feel that Taiwan market is overlooked. Great country. I lived there for 10 years and know that they're fully open. So, you know, whoever wants to go ahead and take that one, please go ahead.
Okay. I'll take the first shot. I mean, I love Taiwan myself. I mean, Leif and I have had less interaction in Taiwan, but obviously it's a market that we're definitely focused on. You know, a lot of people think about baseball when they think about Taiwan, but there's all kinds of opportunity from extreme sports, you know, skateboarding, BMX. Actually, when we were there last, we visited a racetrack and learned a little bit more about how many professional racing fans there are in the country. But, you know, for some reason, the professional sport just hasn't taken off to its full potential. I think Taiwan's a huge potential market, and I agree it is overlooked. So I don't have a good answer for why more, I guess, sports aren't actively going there, but I definitely agree that they should. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I'd just add that from athletes that go, on these tours where they hit, Seoul, Tokyo, Taipei, Shanghai, and go across the world. Taipei, they always report back as it's one of their favorite cities in the world. So there's a deep desire from Tier 1, especially the NBA players we work with, all wanting to appear in Taipei. They really like the city.
Interesting.
And the food, the culture, the scenery. I mean, if you like hiking and outdoors, it's clean. I mean, there's so many reasons to like Taiwan. And so, like Leif said, I think it's a prime destination, and it should be on a lot of people's radars.
Okay, well, I think that's kind of where you show your value is like saying, hey, some of these areas where it's overlooked, you guys should point them that way. Let me see, double check. Okay, so I think we're all set in terms of questions. I'd like to just get kind of like one final, your thoughts on everything from all you guys, and then we'll actually be done. So Adam, if you have any final words or anything that you want to say to kind of finish this off, please go ahead.
First off, thanks for having me on here, and this unique experience to come to Japan, to see temples that were built in 600, things like that, to be engulfed in a culture that has been around for so many centuries. I'm glad that I've been fortunate to have such a great experience. And, it just shows that when you're an athlete, you can never take anything for granted. You never know where you're going to end up. And, thanks for the Japanese companies, but the Japanese MPB, the Japanese fans, the culture. Thanks for embracing me also. So it's been a great experience here for the last 6 months, and hopefully Mr. Donut reaches out.
Leif, we're just gonna go kind of counterclockwise.
Never going to do that. It was a great honor and to be on the HiVE, and thank you for moderating. Adam, thank you for being here with us, and I'll see you. Buy you a nice Kobe steak dinner when I'm in Tokyo next.
Oh, please.
Or Osaka. Anyway, great honor, and what the HiVE's doing is amazing, and I know this is only the beginning. And I too would just reiterate that, especially for our Japanese brands that are listening out there, that please take the opportunity while you have such a great baseball player playing every single day in your country, or pretty much every day. So reach out to him directly or reach out to us. We'd be happy to connect.
Yep. And David, last one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what both of those guys said. And again, thank you, Adam, and thank you, HiVE, for organizing all of this. But my last thing would also be to Japanese brands. Japan is an amazing country. American athletes are generally intrigued by this country. They want to see it. They want to come here. Americans in general are really excited about Japan. And I think there's a huge opportunity to build this bridge further, specifically in sports marketing. And sports marketing is a great way to get more customers and to get more clients. And there's proven ROI behind it. So I would just encourage more brands to seek out opportunities to work with people like Adam and other athletes out there.
Okay, well, thanks guys for coming on. I know it was it was early for you, Adam, and a little bit late for you guys. So thank you so much for coming on, and I think we're done for today.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Take care.
はい。というわけで、ちょっと時間早いですけど、前のセッション、なんとアダム・ジョーンズ選手も本当に登場していただいて、いろいろな質問も皆さんからお寄せいただきましたが、素晴らしいセッションでした。ここからはですね、9時から10時のセッションになるんですけど、この時間帯は、メイドインジャパングローバルシティズンということで、日本からですね、グローバルに活躍する若者のお二方を、お招きして、 彼らのキャリア感だったりとか、今後の、希望だったりとか、そういうところをちょっと伺っていきたいなと思っております。でこのセッションですね、せっかくなので、日本語で、お届けするのプラス、ちょっと英語も交えながら、海外の、彼らの友達だったりとかも、少し理解できるように、バイリンガルでセッションを進めていければなと思っております。それでは、お二人お呼びしたいと思います。まず、岩沢さん。
お疲れ様です。こんにちは、岩沢です。
おはようございますか。こんばんはか、どちらですかね。
なんか、どっちとも言えるところですね。深夜2時になる。
So it's 2 a.m.
Yeah, right.
in
2
France.
a.m. And so I don't know whether I could say hello, good morning or good evening. So yeah.
I would say good morning.
It's okay.
I would say it's good morning. It's 9 a.m. in Japan. So
Yeah.
it's good time in Japan.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. We have another guest here.
Yes.
Yoko-san.
Hi.
お子さん。
こんにちは。
Good morning.
Good morning.
こんにちは。Good morning. Okay.
おはようございます。
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 お二人、今、年齢的にはおいくつですか？
自分は今25歳です。はい。
So, Kenta is 25.
Yes.
How about you, Yoko?
I'm 24, turned 24 in May this year. 24歳になりました。
24歳。二人とも若いですね。
ありがとうございます。
僕にもそんな時代がありましたけど、今僕は気づけば37歳になってしまって、
いや、
いい大人になったなと。I'm 37, so I'm only an adult. But yeah, you guys are adult as well. So today we would like to discuss about your career and vision of your professional career in the future. 今日はですね、先ほどもお伝えしましたけど、グローバルな視点を持った、2人の若者に、どんどん質問していきたいなと思っておりますので、1時間よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお
では
願いします。
ですね、よろしくお願いします。では、まず、陽子さんに行こうかな。
はい。
山岸さんはですね、本当に僕、2018年のピョンチャンオリンピックの時に、現地でたまたまですね、IOC のデジタルチームのオフィスに行ったところ、日本人の女の子がお仕事をしていて、もうなんだこの子はと思ったんですね。それが山岸さんだったんですけど、So I met you in Pyeongchang 2018. Back then, you were working at the IOC digital office, so I was surprised that there are Japanese girl working for them.
Yeah, I was at 21 back then.
Wow.
21歳でした。
So you were a student at then. そこに至った経緯だったりとか、ちょっと、どういう形で、そういうお仕事だったり、掴んでいったのか、ちょっとお話を伺えればなと思いますが。
はい。簡単に自己紹介をさせていただきますと、私は、イギリスのラフバラー大学っていうところで、スポーツマネジメント学部、アンダーグラジュエットで勉強していて、でそれで、その学部中に、いろいろちょっとキャリアも学業と並行してやりたいなと思って、で、仕事の一つとしてお声掛けいただいたのが、IoT のソーシャルメディアの仕事を、ちょうどそのピョンチャンオリンピックの前に、お声掛けいただいて、ピョンチャンから、現在まで、IoT のソーシャルメディアを担当しております。
すごいですよね。なかなか、僕も今東京で、オリンピック・パラリンピックが開かれるということで、本来であれば、今日まさにですね、開会式の日だったということで、 それがなくなってしまったので、なくなってしまったというか延期になったということで、今日せっかくの機会なのでこういうことをやってるんですけど、なかなかやっぱり、こういう仕事をつきたいと思ってもつけない中で、そういう仕事をしかも海外で掴んでいたっていうのは本当すごいと思うんですよね。なんか、そういった背景のところだったりとか、なぜ、大学から海外で、そういう仕事を目指してやっていこうと思ったのか、ちょっと後ほどまた伺っていきたいなと思います。
はい。
それでは、ちょっと岩沢さんの方からお話伺えればなと思うんですけど、岩沢さんはですね、先ほど深夜の、日本時間の3時から4時のセッションでも、飛び入り登場していただいたんですけど、グローバルスポーツウィークという、パリのイベントですね。そちらの、ヤングスポーツメーカーということで日本人唯一、選出されたんですけど、そこら辺の、バックグラウンドも含めて、ちょっと自己紹介いただければと思います。
はい。はじめまして、岩沢健太と申します。2018年からフランス北部のリール大学というところの大学院でスポーツマネジメントを勉強しています。で、学業の傍ら、去年ですね、去年から今年の7月まで、約1年間、フランス北部の、地方行政の方で、パリオリンピック関係のちょっとプロジェクトに関わってまして、で、その傍らですね、傍ら、ヤングスポーツメーカーに、選ばれる、そういう形も、あったという形で、いろいろ重なってる感じだったんですけど、簡単に私のキャリアを説明させていただくとこんな感じです。はい。
So what is Young Sports Maker?
Well,
Actually?
Young Sports Maker is a community of 50 people under the 25 years old. That community was created as a part of the events of Global Sports Week. So one of the role of Young Sports Maker is to share or ask a question to the international sports business reader or other reader as a part of the session, the 50 session in a Global Sports Week. Because one of the concepts of Global Sports Week is to celebrate the voices from young people. They just share their opinion, what they saw, and also currently the young people are a lot of different opinion, and to drive the global transformation in the sports industry. The voice from young voice of young people is essential actually. So to drive the transformation, the Young Sports Maker is created as a part of the global sports week.
いや、先ほどもこのお話、伺わせていただいたんですけど、本当グローバルスポーツウィークはですね、その若者たちの力というか、本当に20代の若者たちだったり、学生の方たちがリーダーにチャレンジすると。なんか先ほどもフランスのマクロンさんにチャレンジをする意見を述べるみたいな機会があったりとか、なんかそういうこともあったみたいなお話を伺いましたけど、すごく若者の力を伸ばしていくというか、今後のスポーツ界どんどん変えていくためにそこに力を入れているなというのを感じたので、来年はですね、また日本にも
そうですね、
グローバルスポーツウィークやってくるっていうことですよね。
そうですね、日本で来年は今この状況下の中で、一つの場所にたくさんの人を集めることができないっていう形になると、何をグローバルスポーツウィークが考えたかというと、小さなハブを世界中にたくさん作りましょうっていう中で、パリを中心として、その他に東京、北京、ミラン、ダカール、そしてロサンゼルス。この5つの、地域のハブを作ろうということになってまって、この地域のハブ何かっていうと、フューチャーオリンピックシティ。これからオリンピックをオーガナイズするような都市を重点都市と置いて、そこでは小さな形になるんですけれども、実際にグローバルスポーツウィークをオーガナイズするという形で、あとはネットでのセッションだったりというのもすごい力を入れていくような形 というようなことは大きかったですね。はい。
ありがとうございます。Okay, so it's next Yoko's turn, I think.
Okay.
So we discussed about your experience with IOC digital team, but you also have some other organization. You work with several other organizations, including Wimbledon,
Yeah.
tennis championships, and Liverpool Football Club. So what's your role with those organizations?
So for like apart from the IOC work, I work for Wimbledon, Liverpool FC, and ITF, International Tennis Federation, and yeah, World Rugby Sevens, and others. And that was through the digital media agency based in London. And then for those sports rights holders, we handle Japanese digital media, social media for them. And then those organizations are looking for expanding their market in Asian area, including Japan. So yeah, I'm basically like doing everyday posting or video creating, subtitling, those stuff for them. So that Japanese audience can reach out to the organizations.
Okay, so you're managing their Japanese social account.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting.
So there's such kind of job for Japanese market. Obviously, they're for example, Liverpool FC. Recently, they got Japanese player.
In January.
Takumi Minamino. So that's a big impact on you.
Yeah. I've started. Liverpool was looking to expand their Japanese market because they got Minamino, and they have like very good very good like globalization in terms of their digital media, social media. They have like a lot of languages, like Arabic. They do like Thai. They do Indonesia. They do USA. Obviously Chinese. Like quite a lot. And then Japan was included since beginning of this year.
じゃあ、南野選手の加入とともに、そういうお仕事ができたっていう感じなんですかね。
はい、そうなります。
なるほど。面白いですね。で、今、リバプール FC って、フェンウェイスポーツグループっていう、ボストンレッドソックスの、スタジアムフェンウェイパークがありますけど、あそこの、あれですよね、運営会社、フェンウェイスポーツグループの傘下に入ってるんですよね。なんかそことのお仕事とかってあるんですか？
ソーシャルメディア上では特に影響は感じないですね。やっぱりそのリバプールの、として、投稿したりしてるので、そういう親とか他のグループ会社とかのこうなんか立ち位置とかアティチュードとかはあんまり見せないです。
なるほど。でも本当お二人とも24歳、25歳とは思えないぐらいのすでにキャリアを持っていて、僕は恥ずかしくなるんですけど、僕もですね、24、5歳の頃はですね、ちょうどアメリカに、マスターを取りに留学に行ってたんですけど、全然なんか二人みたいにそういう、大きな仕事をしたりとかっていうことなかったので、本当に素晴らしいなと思いますし、なんていうんですかね、もうすでにそのキャリアをスタートさせているっていうところで、山岸さん、大学学部の時代から、イギリスに渡られたと思うんですけど、ということは高校の時代にすでにそういうことを志して、もうこれで行くんだって決めて向こう行ったわけですよね。特にラフバラ大学ってやっぱりスポーツの名門だと思いますし、 そこにそういう気持ちに至った背景って何だったんですかね。
でもすっごい単純なんですけど、私はもう小学校とか中学ぐらいからすごいサッカーを見るのが好きで、全然私選手のキャリアとかプレー経験とかないんですけど、まあそのサッカーが好きで、なんかスポーツのビジネスとかマネジメントとか勉強したいなっていうふうに単純に思って、あとはまあ英語のバックグラウンドとしては、他に、まあ、アメリカに幼少期の時にニューヨークに住んでて、まあ、小学校の前までなんですけど、まあ、そういうのもあって、まあ、英語がやっぱり中学高校で勉強してて得意科目だったっていうのもあるし、まあアメリカかイギリスに出て勉強したいなって思い、まあアメリカだとサッカーはそんなに盛んじゃなかったので、イギリスと思ってイギリスのラフバラ大学を選択しました。
なるほど。Are there any other Japanese students in Lavara?
In my course, they depending on the year. So like they have sports science programs, and that's very like popular for international students as well. So like a year above me or a year below me, there's one Japanese student in each year. And then also LIVEATHON is quite famous for engineering studies. So they have a couple of Japanese students there. But not in my course. スポーツマネジメントのコースには、日本人は私の代はいなかったです。
なるほど。でもラフバラ大学のすごくユニークな点として、はい、大学のキャンパス内というか、まあ、わかんないけど、もう周辺にすごくイギリスの、まあ、UK スポーツだったりとか、ナショナルフェデレーションとかがすごく集まってる環境だと思うんですよね。そういうところっていうのもやっぱり考慮されて選んだんですか？
はい、アプライしたときはどういうオーガニゼーションがいるとかはそんなに考えてなかったんですけど、まあ、イギリスもともとアメリカと比べてやっぱり大学数がすごい少ないので、そこでも結構選択が縛られるっていうのと、あとはスポーツマネジメントって言ったらもうどの方に聞いてもラフバラがベストだと思うっていうふうに言われたので、当時ラフバラにアプライしました。でもまあ学校そうですね、プログラム始めてみたら、すごいその UK スポーツだったりスポーツイングランドだったり、まあナショナルレベルの、トレーニング施設とかプログラムが充実しているので、そこはすごい影響を受けました。
なるほど。ごめんなさい、個人的に質問なんですけど、多分これラフバラって例えばすごい、ラフバラ大学ってすごい世界の中でも有名なスポーツ大学なわけじゃないですか。でもそういうのになった時に、なんか入りたいっていう人たくさんいると思うけど、やっぱ入れない人っていうのもなんかいるんじゃないかなって。自分はやっぱ陽子ちゃん知ってるから、やっぱり、ラフバラかってなるけど、なかなかそこで入るまで大変じゃないのかなって。で、なんか質問はやっぱり、なんだろう、入るまでになんかこういうなんか試験みたいなのって、必要なのかなっていうのが、ラフバラ大学に入る。それが今気になりました。
はい、イギリスの大学のそのアプリケーションの方法としては、まあ、インターナショナルスチューデントは、大体ファウンデーションコースっていうその大学準備コースみたいなのを1年間やって、そこでの成績によってアプライできる大学が決まるっていうのと、まあ、あとは IELTS のスコアになりますね。まあ、ラフバラのスポーツマネジメントもやっぱり国内外で結構最近ポピュラーになってきてるので、すごい求めてくる成績も高くなってるっていうふうに聞くんですけど、私がアプライしたときはまだそんなし。
なるほどね。ちょっと僕、あと、じゃあ次、岩沢君に聞きたいんですけど、
はい。
まあ、数ある、まあ、特にやっぱり英語圏に、留学をする人ってすごく多いと思うんですけど、あえてそのフランスを選んだ理由っていうのをすごく興味があるんですけど、なぜリール大学に留学を決意したんですか？
そうですね。これ結構かなり偶然もあるんですけど、それこそ自分が大学4年生の時、2017年の10月ぐらいの時にたまたま日体大にあったチラシで、
チラシ。
チラシじゃなくて、フランス大使館で、リール大学の説明会やるんで、なんか、もしよかったら、みたいな感じで、なんか貼ってあってるのを見て、まあ自分も、その時はもうフランス語何も知らなかったんですけど、まあ自分の進路もその時決まってなかったんで、とりあえず行ってみようと思って行って、で、聞いたらリール大学のその大学院のコースで日本人を募集してるっていう話があったので、なんか面白そうだなっていうので、そこにいた教授の先生といろいろ話していたら、お前来るかって言われて、そっか、なんか面白そうだなっていう形で、その時は選んだというのが一つのきっかけで、そこに一緒にいた、話を聞きに行った女性の方、その方はフランスに住まれて長い人なんですけど、その人からやっぱり今オリンピックの公用語の中にもやっぱフランス語があるし、フランス語でしかやっぱわからない世界もあると思うから、やってみたら面白いんじゃないのって話も聞いて、その時に自分も、オリンピックの公用語ってフランス語も入ってるんだっていうのを知って、で、そこからですね、で、その2017年自分が、その説明会行く2ヶ月前ぐらいにパリオリンピックが決まったんですよ。そしたら、自分、この時に東京関わりたいと思っても関われないな、時間的にと思ったんで、逆にパリにとか行って、フランスに行ったら、フランスと日本を束ねる人っていう、あんまりいないんじゃないって、自分の知り合いの中でもフランスでスポーツで学んでる人って聞いたことなかったですし、今も行ってみたらやっぱり少ないので、そこで行ってみたら逆に自分はチャンスなんじゃないかなっていうのがあって、選んだって形ですね。まとめるといろいろ要因があるんですけれども、これから大規模スポーツイベントがフランスに来るっていうのと、あとはその時の運もあったっていう形ですね。
なるほど。So I found a point that really interesting. So you said that the program was looking for Japanese student to get involved. That's so they wanted to have Japanese.
Yeah, exactly, actually, because the university has some program for with the French National Olympic Committee. So the project is like currently it's during the Olympic game, it's a really a tendency to organize some like how to say like a country house. I mean, in the case of the Japan, like
NOC house, National Olympic Committee house.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I forgot the name for the Japanese one, but in the French, that's called crouffons. Actually, the university really had a partnership with French National Olympic Committee. I would be one of them to participate to the operation side of the crouffons. But yeah, so that's why our university really was very curious about the Japanese people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the university really passionate to look for some Japanese actually.
なるほど、そんなことあるんですね。
そうです。
でもやっぱりそういうオポチュニティというか、向こうも求めてるっていうのはね、なんかすごく新しいなと思うし、やっぱり大学院のプログラムとかって学生側がなんか求めに行くっていうイメージがあるんだけど、
そうですね。
はい。なんかそうやって日本人の学生を探してたっていうのはすごく面白いですよね。
そうですね。ただ日本、例えば大学院って考えると、やっぱりその研究テーマがあって、もっと言えばその大学に行くっていうよりも先生に行くっていうのが多分必要になると思うんですけど、自分はそういう感じじゃなくて、本当にそこでオファーが来て、運よく受かってそこに行けたっていうのがあるので、なんだろう。今、日本の大学院生の人たちと喋っても多分話が合わないと、なんでこの先生とかじゃないのみたいな感じで。いや、そういうわけじゃないけどって言っても、あれみたいな。話が合わないみたいなことは結構あるんですけど。
なるほどね。
なんかその、日本人の募集って他の日本の大学にもかかってたんですか？それとも日体大だけだったんですか？
いや、そもそも大使館でやりますっていうのをやってたから、別に日体大って、日体大だけにすごい絞ってたわけじゃない。これでも、あと、でもカンファレンスじゃない、説明会があった次の日に日体大とそのリーダー大学の提携結ぶっていう日があって、そういうのもあったと思う。その説明会自体は日体大の学生だけじゃなくて、他の人たちもいた。で、全然フランスに長く住んでる若い人もたくさんいたし、 でも、なんか運よく選ばれたっていう感じですね。
でもそういう意味ではなんか本当チャンスってどこに転がってるかわかんないですよね。そのリール大学のチラシね、フランス大使館の出したチラシを目にして、そしたら中に個人を募集してるプログラムがあるとか、なかなかね、やっぱりそこ、出会ったことは素晴らしいと思うし、本当どこにチャンスが転がってるかわかんないなと思いますよね。
そうですね。はい。
うん。で、まあ、やっぱり、若い方たちにはそういうチャンスを常に、こう、本当に、やりたいという気持ちがあったら、絶対に取りに行けば、いろんなことが、チャンスが転がってると思うし、ぜひなんかそういう視野は広げてほしいなと思いますよね。で、まあ、もう一個のポイントとして、やっぱりフランス語が、オリンピックの世界だと公用語であるっていうお話があったと思うんですけど、山岸さん、なんかそういうのを、いろんな IOC との仕事をしたりしていく中で感じることってありますか？
なんかIOC の中でのコミュニケーションは、メールとか来ると大体そういうオフィシャルなメールだと英語と、フランス語が先に来る場合もありますし、英語が来る場合もあるんですけど、両方でメールが来たりするので、もちろんそのローザンヌにベースしていることもあるんですけど、フランス語の大切さは毎日ひしひし感じております。
そうですよね。
でも英語で全然コミュニケーション取れるので、全然、フランス語だけっていう場面には出くわしたことはないんですけど、どっちも喋れるのがベストだと思います。
基本的には、基本的なコミュニケーションは英語だと思うんですけど、でもIOC があるローザンヌ、いろんなインターナショナルフェデレーションがありますけど、どのね、インターナショナルフェデレーションも結構フランス語で、もう組織名の表記がフランス語だったりとか、そういうところも多いですもんね。
確かに。
そういう意味でもやっぱりフランス語っていうのはすごく国際競技団体とか、そういう世界で働こうと思っている方にとってはすごく重要なスキルセットであるかなと思いますね。
そうですよね。でもやっぱりまずは英語だと思いますけど、自分もこんなこと言うのなんだかなと思うんですけど、まずはやっぱり英語ができた上で、そのフランス語ができるということは大事。国際でやっぱ働くっていうふうになると、言わずもがなですけど、やっぱり英語ができることはもちろん大事。それかつ、フランス語があればっていう形、フランス語だったり、ドイツ語だったりっていうのがあればっていうのが大事。だからまず英語は外しちゃいけないのかなっていうのは自分もしいて思ってますし、自分も今、フランスの、北の方の都市ですけど、やっぱり田舎なんで、フランス語だけでそこそ生活できちゃうんですけど、それだけにならないようにしないといけないよなって思う部分は結構ありますね。
So when did you start learning French?
Actually, when I decided to move to move to France, so that was 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah. So before the conference, as I said, before the conference at the embassy of France in Japan, I don't have any French word, even bonjour or merci. I didn't know such a word, simple word. Yeah, but
now you can communicate no problem.
Yeah, almost no problem. If someone speak some French with some dialect, it's very complicated. Especially here in Lille, the accent is very strong because it's not about France. So it's a bit sometimes complicated to understand all what the people in Lille and talk about, you know. Now there is no problem, I guess. Yeah.
But your program is conducted in English or French?
Yeah, that's kind of a funny story because before starting, the professor told me that the class will be organized 6% in French and 40% in English. But and after I started to the program, I'm getting involved in the program. Actually, there are almost zero professor who can speak English fluently. So I realized that 90% of the class organized in French and only 10% of the classes organized in English って感じだったんですよ。
わお。そんな状況で授業とかついていけたんですか、最初。
いや、最初は全然ですよ。
ですよね。
はい。で、いきなり一番最初の授業が、なんか社会学みたいな授業だったんです、フランスで。しかも社会学も、なんかインターナショナルソシオロジーとかじゃなくて、もうフランスのことを、もうやるみたいな。フランスの社会学なんか3時間ぐらいずっと話すみたいなことやったんですよ。わかるわけねえじゃんと思って。
それはきついっすね。
でも、その時から来るとこ間違いだと思いました。本当に。
教授のバックグラウンドってみんなどんな感じなんですか？どれだけ国際的なのかとか。
いや、でもほとんどフランス人。全員違う。ちょっと外国人の方もいらっしゃるけど、まあ、ほぼフランス人って形で、下手すれば、あんま海外出てることない。本当バカンスでなんかスペイン行くとかしかなんかないぐらいの人も多分いると思う。そんぐらいな感じ。でも、英語もちろん話せる人も、まあ、ちらほらはもちろんいるし、まあそういう人たちはいろんなとこ海外に行ってっていう、今研究もしてたりっていう人ももちろんいますね。はい。
いや、面白いですね。なんか僕も、ちゃんとフランスに行ったことなくて、
はい。
はい。パリ行ったことないです。乗り継ぎでしか行ったことはないので、ぜひ一度行きたいなと思うんですけど、今度遊び行きますね、ぜひ。
ぜひ来てください。ちょっと思ってるイメージやがっかりしちゃう部分も多いと思います。あれ汚いのみたいな。なんか、そういう部分もあると思うんですけど、まあ、いろんな意味で奇想天外な国なので、今は面白いなと思えてます。
うん。なるほど。
はい、
ちょっとですね、こんな、コメントが来ていまして、石原さんから、まあ、これ、岩沢さんというか、山岸さんもですよね、このグローバルスキッパーズというプロジェクトが、ローンチされ、結構最近ですかね、ローンチしたのが。でお二人とも、ここの、はい、プロジェクトのメンバーとして、参画されてると思うんですけど、ちょっとこのプロジェクトについて伺ってもいいですか？
じゃあ、私が。
お願いします。
水飲んでたからちょっとごめんね。
もともとバックグラウンドとしては、これをこのグローバルスキッパーズというプロジェクトを創立してくださった中田さんっていう方が、まあ、前職ラグビーワールドカップの人事とかされてたんですけれども、そこで、結構なんか日本人の人たちと、ワールドラグビーの人たちの間で結構コミュニケーションにおいてギャップを感じたりっていうのがあって、でそういうのって、まあ、結局若い時からある程度そういうインターナショナルなところで経験を積んどかないと、こう後々結構大きなギャップとなって生まれてしまうっていう危機感から、まあ、私たちのように、海外、国外と、つながりがある、スポーツの、において結構勢いがある若者を集めるみたいな感じでお声掛けいただいて、1ヶ月ほど前に指導しました。
具体的にはどういう岩沢さん？
俺がなんだ。
じゃあ岩沢さん、具体的な活動としては、なんかどういう活動が今後計画されてるんですか？
今後は自分もちょっとまだわからないですけど、今までやったことといえば、例えばそれこそ、さっきグローバルスポーツウィークのことで出た、ヤングスポーツメーカーと一緒に、例えばセッションを一緒にやってみたりとか、はい、例えば今日本で結構注目されてる、そのスポーツ界においても注目されてる時期で、そういう部分で、例えば、いろいろ日本の情報が海外のメディアに載って出ると思う部分ってあると思うんですけど、あんまり日本の、生の声っていうのが海外の人たちに届いてるケースが少ないなっていうふうなところもあって、だったら今日本で、オリンピックでは限らないですけどですね、日本のスポーツ界にかかっているものをどんどん日本人の声として発信していこうっていうのも、それこそヤングスポーツメーカーの方々と一緒に作ったりっていうのを活動させていただいたという形ですね。はい。
そういう意味では本当にこの2020年、2021年って、日本にとっては海外に発信するまたとないチャンスだと思うんですよね。で、2020年本来、今日 開会式があったわけですけど、ここで、大会やってたら、今がピークで、おそらくここから先、もう東京に目が向くことはなかったかもしれないんですけど、1年延期になったことで、逆にあと1年、東京に目が向く期間が伸びたっていう捉え方もできると思うんですけど、そこら辺って、海外で生活しててどう感じられます？じゃあ山岸さん、ちょっといいですか？
でも本当に多分、それこそ日本にいらっしゃる方とか大会に携わってた方は、もうそれこそ今回の東京2020なくなったら、小倉さんおっしゃったように、多分、ちょっともうパリだったり LA とかにもうどんどん行っちゃうので、危機感は感じてらっしゃると思うんですけど、そうですね、引き続き、もう、東京のことは、多分皆さん、目はずっと向けてるし、果たして、今後どういうふうになるの、大会がどうなるのかっていうのは、もう常にみんなずっと意識はしてると思います。ただその1年間延期され、1年間やっぱり結構、すごい短いですので、で、やっぱりこのコロナの状況の中で、できることもすごい限られちゃってることもあるし、その中で、今後、2021年終わった後、日本のスポーツ界がどう、今後展開していくのかっていうのは、海外にいて気になるところであります。
なるほど。逆に自分はフランスにいて、やっぱり、東京のニュースもちらほら出るんですけれども、やっぱり、次のオリンピックを控えている国として、やっぱり報道はパリ関係のものがすごい多い印象で、この延期でパリはどうなる、またはこの2020関係で、影響を受けたフランスの企業はこんな感じみたいな、結構フランス目線で書かれてるっていうのが結構多かったんですね。だから、フランスはちょっと特殊なシチュエーションではあるものの、あんまり東京には向いてないんだっていう部分がちょっと見受けられますね。そこをやっぱりいかに向けられるような部分、何か発信だったり、東京オリンピックこうなってるよねっていうものを、もっと世界に発信できる。東京オリンピックだけじゃなくて、やっぱ日本で起きてるような、スポーツイベントだったり、スポーツだったりっていうのが、もっとどんどん世界に出ればなっていうふうに、フランスに限らず思ってますね。
まさに、グローバルスポーツウィークとかの動きを見てると、やっぱり、ああいうことをしていかなきゃ、ホストシティとして、ああいうことをやっていかないと、なんていうんですかね、そのチャンスを逃しちゃうというか、今だからできることをどんどん仕掛けていくっていうことはね、絶対やっていくべきだと思うんですよね。だからそういう意味では、本来だったら東京がもっともっと、ああいうことを仕掛けていければよかったのかなと思うんですけど、とは言っても、もう過ぎてしまった時間は取り戻せないですし、いろいろな、シチュエーションの中で難しい部分もあると思うんで、そういう意味もあって、今回この24時間の、企画をしてですね、少しでも海外の方たちと、be connected できるようにっていうことをやってきたんですね。で、どうですかね、お二人は、今後、キャリアを築き上げていく中で、正直、グローバルパーソンになった時に、拠点ってどこでもいいと思うんですけど、日本に拠点を置いて、海外と仕事をしたいか、それとも海外に拠点を置いて、日本に対して何かフィードバックするような仕事をしたいか、そこら辺ってどうお考えですか？
陽子ちゃん先に聞きたいかも、これ。
いや、でも私は特に場所どこがいいとか全然ないんですけど、もちろんイギリスの大学で4年、5年、イギリスに5年ぐらい住んでたし、で、あと9月からローザンヌにある IOC の承認されたプログラムで、スポーツマネジメントマスタープログラムで AISDS っていうものがあるんですけど、9月からそこに進学するので、必然的にスイスとかだったりヨーロッパ、あとはイギリス、ロンドンとかでもいいかなって思ってるんですけど、ヨーロッパで最初、キャリアはスタートさせたいなとは思ってます。で、将来的にもそういうそれこそ日本との 何か架け橋、橋渡し的なところができたらなとは思っております。安田さんは
ありがとう。自分も最初やっぱヨーロッパ、それこそやっぱりフランスで勉強してて、で、2024年にオリンピックが来るってなると、やっぱりフランス、2024年まではフランスのスポーツ業界の方にいたいなっていうのはそういう強く思ってて、でそこに向けて今自分も就活をしたりとかもしてるんですけれども、それもありますけど、やっぱりフランス語圏っていうのも一つの方法だと思ってますし、それこそスイスのね、ローザンのあるところであったりとか、あとは、そうですね、ベルギーとかも、ブリュッセルとかの下、ブリュッセルっていう首都がブリュッセル、そこの下の方とか、本当にフランス語圏だったりもしますし、そういうところとかも結構いろんなグローバルに活躍されている会社とかもあるので、そういうところに見てもいいかなっていうのもあります。自分の最初のプライオリティとしては、そうですね、フランスですけど、そういうところも見つつっていうのが短期的なキャリアで、将来的には、そうです。でも、すごいどこがいいとかもないですね。どこがいいとかそういうのも自分なくて、その時にやっぱり来るものに従うというか、自分も意思ももちろんあるんですけど、その時にワクワクするものに自分は行くんだろうなっていうふうに、ことは思っていますね。はい。
そうですよね。だから僕も、お二人に聞いときながら、自分もどこを拠点にどういう仕事をしていくかみたいなことって、なかなかやっぱり定まらないし、やはり自分がやりたいことがある場所がっていうか、やりたいことができるのであれば、正直場所って関係ないですよね。で、言語も多分、少なくとも英語ができれば、どこでも仕事ができると思うし、だから本当英語ってそのためのツールなのかなって思いますよね。
そうですね。フランスも、一時期ではやっぱりフランス語喋れないときついっていうふうに言われる部分も、言われるような社会で、確かにその部分もやっぱ田舎の方に行くとあるんですけど、それこそ、一昨日パリにちょっと行く用事があっていろいろ言ってたときに、確かレゴのフランス支社みたいなとこ通ったんですよ。歩いてて。で、そこ通ったときにはもうほとんど、いろんな人種の方がいて、フランス語なまりだけど、はい、ハワイユーみたいな感じで英語で喋ってるような姿を見て、やっぱり働くっていう面だけを考えれば、やっぱり英語だけでもうどこでもできるような社会になってるんだなって改めて思ったんですね。だからもう今皆さんおっしゃってる通りで、本当にもう英語できれば多分どこで働けるっていうのは自明のことなのかなっていうのはすごい感じます。
でも逆にそういう、グローバルマーケットで仕事していく中では、最初にリール大学の、日本人学生の募集があったとか、あと山岸さんがそういうエージェンシーで日本のソーシャルアカウントできる人を探しているとか、やっぱり日本人であることの強みを生かしていく仕事、そこにやっぱり我々の、日本人としての、強みっていうのはあるのかなと思うんですよね。そういうのはやっぱり感じられますよね、やっぱりね。
あと基本的にビザがやっぱりビザ問題があるので、パスポート、向こうのパスポートとか、永住権とか持ってない中でアプライ、私たちがその強みを生かして、その仕事を取っていくってなると、やっぱり日本語が話せるだったり、岩沢さんだったらフランス語も英語も日本語も大丈夫なので、多分その3つが強みになると思うんですけど、やっぱりそういう面で言語はすごい大きいですね。
そうですね。だから僕もアメリカにいたときに、向こうでインターンやってて、で、最終的にビザが取れなくて日本帰ってきたんですけど、結局、ビザって、例えばアメリカだったら、アメリカ人じゃなくて、なんでこの日本人を雇う必要があるのかっていうのを結構移民弁護士とかがちゃんと書いて、証明したりとかしなきゃいけないんですね。で、そのサラリーがある程度のレベル感であったときに、じゃあ、当然アメリカ人の雇用率を上げなきゃいけないし、外国人労働者を受け入れるっていうことは、その分一個、アメリカ人の雇用の枠が減ることにもつながるわけじゃないですか。 そうなった時に、それでもやっぱりこの日本人には、こういうスペシャルなスキルがあるから、アメリカにとって有益になるから、ビザを出す必要があるみたいなことを、厳密に言うとね、必ずしも全部がそうではないと思いますけど、厳密に言うと、やっぱりそういう、コンペティションというか、そういうマーケットの中でしっかりバリューを出せる人材じゃないと、ビザって降りないと思うし、そういう意味ではなんかその日本人であることの強みであったりとか、自分にしかできないことみたいなものを持っているっていうのは本当に重要ですよね。
それはそう感じますね。フランスにいても、やっぱり日本人だからやっぱりできることをやっぱり求められる。フランスで例えばフランススポーツ業界で働くとなると、例えばフランスのその会社のものを日本で展開してほしい。そのスポーツイベント自体を日本で展開したいから、ちょっと手伝ってほしいとか、そういう話にやっぱなるわけで、やっぱりアジア人であるっていうアイデンティティを自分がなくしてしまったら、やっぱり就活、ヨーロッパで働くっていうのはちょっと厳しいのかなっていう、自分はフランスの経験ですけど、それはすごい感じますね。だからそれも活かしつつ、で、言語があるっていうのは当然のこと、その足し算がなった時に、やっぱ就活であったりとか生まれるのかなっていうふうに思ってます。あと、フランスもビザは結構大変ですし、特に更新とかが毎年あるんですけど、その時はもうなんか、そのビザの更新はドラマが生まれるっていう感じで、本当にいろんなことが起きたり、この書類、書いてない書類を出せって言われたりとか、もう本当にいろんなドラマが生まれるんですけど、そんな困難も乗り越えながら、いろいろ働けるようになったりだったりとか、ビザが更新できて、もう一年学生できたりっていうあるっていう形。だからそこの、タフさも必要ですね。だから、アジア人という強み、プラス語学、そしてそのタフさというか、そういうのも必要なのかなっていう感じもします。
山岸さん、そういう意味では、グローバルで活躍していく上で、必ずこれは必要だって思うものって。
私はそういうマルチカルチャーとかへの理解力だったり、自分のフレキシビリティとかっていうのは結構アピールして、それは結構向こうからもバリューとして見られてるかなっていうふうに思います。例えば IOC だったりとか、ウィンブルドンとか他の仕事でもすごいインターナショナルなところで働いてて、で、それこそ仕事において東京2020さん、組織委員会さんだったり、IOC さんだったりっていうのをつなぐ、コミュニケーション面で、つなぐ役割とかもしてて、多文化への理解は、結構自分も重要視してます。
なるほどね。でも結局そうですよね。多文化への理解。こういうのってやっぱりなかなか日本にずっといると気づかないですよね。どうですか？やっぱり海外行ってそういうのって気づくようになりました？より。今、岩沢さんとかね、大学までこっちにいて、大学院から向こうに行って、そういうカルチャーショックだったりとか、そういうのってありました？
いや、もうフランス着いた時はもうカルチャーショックだらけでしたよね。こんなにフランス語喋んなきゃいけないんだみたいなのが結構ありましたし、あとフランス人とかって結構時間にルーズだったりとかもありますし、仕事する上でも、フランスで仕事する上でも、日本人って結構いろいろ計画立てて、それ通りにやっていくって感じだと思うんですけど、フランス人も一応計画が立てるんですけど、その通りに行くことなんかないですし、もう彼らは本当ギリギリで決めるんですよね。ことがなす、ギリギリで全て決めて、みたいな。だからギリギリまで今まで決めたことが覆ることもあるんですよね。だから、もっと1日しかないのに全部これやんなきゃいけないのみたいな。全部方針変わっちゃうのみたいなのあって。そことかはもうすごい、働く上でのカルチャーショックはそこがすごい強かったな。あとは文化ですごいカルチャーショック。そうですね。あとはいいカルチャーショックみたいなのが実はあって、フランスだともう意外に失敗した時にくよくよしないとか、自分が落ち込んでる時とかに、根拠もなく大丈夫だよって言ってくれるっていうのは、すごい逆に自分がわからない力になってくれるんですよね。セパラーブとか言われると、どこ関係ないのかみたいな。じゃあ楽天的に生きようぜみたいな感じで助けられてるっていう部分のカルチャーショックも すごいあるんですけど、まあもちろんそういう大変なカルチャーショック、どっちもあるっていう形ですね。自分が気づいたの。はい。
なるほど。いやー、すごく面白いです。そのカルチャーショックは、まあ僕もいろいろありましたしね。もう全然違う環境になんか飛び込んで、特に僕の場合はもう本当に大学まで完全に体育会系で、部活とかもやってたんで、いきなりアメリカ行ったら、なんか、まあ勉強もそうだし、ね、やっぱり僕が行ったインディアナっていう、アメリカの中西部で、結構やっぱり田舎の町だったんで、その留学のですね、最初に、モントリオールで世界水泳があったんですよ。2005年に遡るんですけど、モントリオールに1ヶ月だけ、世界水泳のボランティアで行ってて、でモントリオールってやっぱり、フランス語圏で、ケベックのね、結構やっぱり多様性のある文化のある、都市だったんで、割と受け入れられる感じだったんだけど、で、英語もすごい聞き取りやすかったし、でインディアナポリスに降り立った瞬間に、まずなんか英語が結構、早いし、なんか聞き取りづらくて、で、しかもなんかこう、ちょっと、やっぱり、モントリオールに行った時と違う、こう、人たちの、こう、なんていうんですかね、なんか冷たいな、みたいな。なんか最初行った時そういうの感じたんですよね。そこのやっぱり、土地でのもう、こう、人の、なんか、なんだろう、文化だったりとか、接し方だったりとか、全然カルチャーも違うと思うし、すごくそれは感じますよね。なんかアジア人がなかなかいない場所にいきなり行くと、おおみたいな。
ああ、そうですね。でも逆にフランスはパリの方がなんか人冷たいなっていう感じがして、なんかリールだと、まあ、今は自分がフランス語話せるからってあると思うんですけど、すごいなんか温かく受け入れてくれるっていう感じが環境あるんですけど、逆にパリに行くとなんかみんなせかせかしてて、自分が、ごめん、フランス語なんて言ったみたいな人は、このフランス語わかんないのかみたいな感じなんか冷たく接される方がなんか多いなっていう感じがあるんで、まあ自分はまあちょっと田舎のリールの方がなんか好きかなっていう部分があったりするんですけど、まあそういう、フランス内でもカルチャーが違う。あ、ごめんなさい。
日本でも同じですよね、多分ね。例えば東京だと、多分じゃあ、本当に田舎町行って、全く英語喋れないおじいちゃんおばあちゃんがいる田舎町と、じゃあ東京結構英語も喋れるビジネスマンがいっぱいいるところで、なんか外国人が来た時に、必ずしもなんかどっちの方が温かく迎えてくれるかって分かんないですよね。言語の問題だけじゃなくて、片田舎でも、そのおじいちゃんたちが、日本語でも話しかけてくれると、なんか意外と通じちゃったりとか、そういうのってあるじゃないですか。
そうですね。
なんかやっぱり。
あとは自分のバックグラウンドとかもあるし、例えば自分だとやっぱ本当田舎の方です。千葉の本当に九十九里とか本当に田舎の方で育ってて、なんだろう。逆に東京の人たちの方がなんか冷たく見えるなって部分もあるんですよね。逆に、なんだろうな、その田舎の方に戻ってきて、なんかちょっとまあ海の方なんで口が荒いわけですよ。口が荒いこと喋るんですけど、なんだっぺおめえよみたいな感じで喋るんですけど、なんかその方が自分としてはなんか心が落ち着くっていうのは。だからその人によっても違うっていう部分もあると思うんですけど、そうですね。まあ、やっぱありますよね、その違い。
そういう、やっぱりカルチャーはね、その土地土地であるから、まあ、合に行っては合に従えで、しっかりそこに順応してやっていくっていうことは、まあ、グローバルシティズンとしては重要なスキルではありますよね。それは、山岸さんが言ってくれてた、異文化への多様性、対応力みたいなことはすごく重要だなと感じますね。時間が結構いい感じにはなってきたんですけど、そうだな。さっきのグローバルスキッパーズ、ちょっと話戻りたいと思うんですけど、まあ、同世代の仲間たちがあそこにはいると思うんですよね。同じようにグローバルで活躍する、同年代の、スポーツ人材っていう方たちがいると思うんですけど、なんかそういうコミュニティみたいなものってあるんですか？
イギリスにはあんまりその若者向けでスポーツに特化したなんかリーダープログラムみたいなのはあんまり聞かなくて、でも私がそれこそ大学3年生の時にやってた、プレイスメントっていうそのフルタイムのインターンシップみたいなのがイギリスの大学って結構盛んなんですけど、そこの会社がそのスポーツのビジネスネットワーキング会社みたいなところだったので、そういうところがこの若者のリーダープログラムみたいなのをもうちょっと積極的にやっていけばいいのではないかなとは、私は逆にイギリスに今後期待してます。
なるほど、なるほど。
でも、岩沢さん、それこそなんかグローバルスポーツウィークとか結構ヤングスポーツメーカーズみたいにそのリーダープログラムはフランスの方が充実してるなとは感じます。
まあ、ヤングスポーツメーカーのコミュニティも本当にインターナショナルコミュニティという感じで、フランス発だけれども、フランスのものというよりは、そこのヤングスポーツメーカーの人たちのものっていう感じ。だから、フランス自体もそんなコミュニティ多分存在しないと思ってて、ヤングスポーツとかグローバルスポーツウィークっていう時にできたそのヤングスポーツメーカーのコミュニティが、そういうコミュニティになってるっていう形の解釈かな、個人的には。あんま少ないですよね。だから、それもこれも、さっきのグローバルスポーツウィークのセッションで話したことなんですけど、やっぱこういうヤングのコミュニティ、ヤングでスポーツのコミュニティってないよね、どこ探してもないよね。だからそのグローバルスポーツウィークでヤングスポーツメーカーのコミュニティはすごい、大きなものだと思うっていうのは、やっぱり他の国見てもそういうのがないよなっていう部分も踏まえてのことだったんですけどね。
本当なんか、さっき、その、ヤングスポーツメーカーの話を聞いても、素晴らしいなと思うんで、ぜひ、やっぱり今後、もっと、さらに若い世代の日本人の方たちが、ああいうプログラムに参加してくれると嬉しいですよね。多分、岩沢さんとしても、一期生として、誇りに思えるんじゃないかなと思いますけど、どうですか？
そうですね。ぜひ、いろんな人に、そうですね。今回多分日本人でアプライしたのが多分自分だけだったと思うんです。このヤングスポーツメーカーに対して。初めて始まるものなんで、なかなか、認知が少なかったってものもあると思うんですけど、これからはやっぱり日本でこれからオーガナイズされるっていうのもあるので、ぜひ本当に日本の、もうたくさんいると思うんです。英語できてスポーツで活躍してる。今もしてるだったりとか、これからもしたいという人たくさん出てくると思うんです。そういう人たちにとっては本当に最高の場になると思うんですよ。そのグローバルスポーツウィークっていう、かつヤングスポーツメーカーってコミュニティも含めて。なので、いろんな人がどんどんアプライして、挑戦したらすごいいいものになるんじゃないかなっていうふうに思いますね。はい。
ありがとうございます。そろそろ時間が結構迫ってきて、もう最終的に日本語ばっかりになっちゃいましたけど、結局。
確かに。
最初はなんかチャレンジしてみたけど、で、なんかポッドキャストでバイリンガルニュースっていうのがあって、なんか日本語と英語が入り混じって2、3時間語ってる人たちがいるんですよね。なんかあれ聞いてるとなんかすごく自然に、ああいうね、日本語英語が入り乱れるセッションとかをやれると面白いのかなと思ったんですけど、やってみるとやっぱ意外と難しいですね。
そうですね。確かに。
多分一人ネイティブとかがいると、自然に英語が出てきたりっていうのがあると思うんですけど。
そうです。
でも本当日本にいながらにして、こういう、日本語でも英語でも会話できる人を増やしていくっていうのもすごく貴重だと思うし、僕も本業の方では、結構国際的な、方たちとの関わりがある仕事をして、チームにも外国人のスタッフがいたりとかするので、基本的にチーム内の、言語は英語なんですよね。コミュニケーションは。そういうのも、日本国内の企業でも、公用語が英語の企業も増えてきたりしてると思うんで、本当に先ほどお二人とも言ってましたけど、言語っていうのは一つのツールでしかないですし、ぜひそれは身につけて、グローバルに活躍できる人材が増えていくと嬉しいですよね。ぜひ、お二人に追随するような10代、20代の若者が増えてくることを祈っております。というところで多分次のセッションの方たちがそろそろ来てるっぽいので、入ってくるかな？
お疲れ様です。
ミュートになってますかね、金沢さん。
お疲れ様です。
ダメです。
ありがとうございました。ちょっと逆行で申し訳ないですが、次もサンフランシスコ大学セッションなので、そうですね。まさにそのスポーツマネジメントのクラスの講義なので、お話だったりするので、ぜひ、お二人もこの後聞いてみていただけたりするといいかなと思っていたりします。すごく、これからの、続く人たちに対するメッセージも含めて、いろんな参考になる情報ありがとうございました。じゃあ、ちょっとここで、はい。次の人たちとバトンタッチしたいと思います。
じゃあ、岩沢さん、山岸さん、本当ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
またちょっといろいろ話しましょう、今後も。ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。リーブス。
はい。では、田中さん聞こえますかね？
聞こえます。大丈夫ですか？
じゃあよろしくお願いします。サンフランシスコ大学のスポーツマネジメントのところのお話ということで、田中さんとダン先生でよろしくお願いします。じゃあこちらから始めて、いただければと思います。
よろしくお願いします。
先にお任せします。
Welcome to the show, Professor Don Rocha. Nice to see you.
Great to see you, Yuta. Thanks for having me. This is a really cool thing you guys are doing with the 24-hour liveathon. So I think that's great.
Yeah, when I heard about this, I thought it was crazy. But probably, as you know, we were supposed to have Olympics today. So we wanted to have something special and, think about sport. And, we are connecting sports professionals across the world. And I'm absolutely happy that we can, connect again, between Tokyo and San Francisco. So today's session title is The New Normal of the Sport Industry. And my name is Yuta. I am the host for this session. And it's pleasure to introduce Dr. Dan Rocha. He has been the director and the professor of the sports management at the University of San Francisco. Actually, I graduated from the university, the program as well. He has been also known as the president of sports economics and also partner at OSKR. Thank you for coming, Dan Rocha.
Thanks for having me, Yuta. It's great to see you again.
Thank you. So we wanted to kind of talk about University of San Francisco because in Japan, we are really interested in sport industry in US and also academic program at the University of San Francisco. Maybe I can show the video that University of San Francisco created. So let me pull up.
For us, legacy is about our history. It's about the number of years and the many alumni that are really playing a senior role within the sports industry around the world.
And so our students are able to interact with any of those alumni. They can do informational interviews, but they also hear about open jobs. They hear about open internships. And a lot of times that's the access that you need in order to break into this industry.
As a student in the USF Sport Management Master's Program, we receive emails with internship, job, volunteer opportunities. I had 2 internships while I was in the program, one which was at the USF Athletic Department, and the second, which turned into a full-time job, was at Cal Athletics.
And so we now have alumni globally that are contributing in front offices and teams in professional and collegiate sport, who are playing roles in agencies and broadcasters and sport tech environments.
It's understanding how to network, and it's understanding the value of building organic and authentic relationships. That's one thing that USF will facilitate.
I had an opportunity to network with people, to meet contacts, to get my foot in the door at AEG. And really, I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not gone back to school and been part of University of San Francisco's sport management program.
Everyone who worked and taught in the program are actually more professionals from the field. So it's not like I'm talking to somebody that only knew the book, because anybody can know the book. But if you actually experience stuff and you've met people and you've worked with people and you've worked on projects and your things been published, feel like they were so accessible.
And so across the nature of the industry, we have alumni now over more than a decade that really provide that access for our students. There is nothing else in our society right now that captures people's imagination, that gets them to want to watch something live on TV, that gets them talking about it for days and days afterwards, than sport that they really care about.
That's cool video.
Yeah, that's a bunch of our alumni, students, some of the faculty. Yeah, and I think one of the great points was that all of the faculty, all of us are involved in the sports industry. The adjunct professors who work every day for, say, the San Francisco Giants, they come in at night and they teach, or all of us who are professors, right, who do research and consulting, but we all have our foot in the industry. So that way the students, when they come to our program, as you know, each of us are talking about actual projects that are happening in the sports industry.
Gotcha. So can you talk about the overview of University of San Francisco sports management program?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And let me share my screen. It'll help, I think, a little bit with some of the ideas.
Yep.
So let me click a few buttons here and see what happens. Can you see my screen? No?
Yes.
Oh, you can? Okay, there we go. It just took a second here. Let me just blow that up a little. Okay, so I think one of the advantages of our program is that the students come to class in the evening, and you probably remember that you would show up to class around 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and then you go pretty late into the night, even if you've worked all day. But what that allows is the students can then come to class in the evening, and then during the day they can start working in sports, internships, jobs. They can work for the San Francisco Giants or California Golden Bears, as you saw, which is one of the universities. They can work for the Golden State Warriors. They can work for ESPN, all sorts of organizations, both in San Francisco and in the Los Angeles area. So we have campuses in both locations. So as faculty, we fly up and down the coast, and we teach in both locations. And so students even sometimes will transfer up and down depending on, if you get a job at the Dodgers and you're in San Francisco, you're going to go move to Los Angeles, attend the program down there, and work for the Dodgers. And then our alumni network is somewhere around 3,000 students. And so that really, or 3,000 people, and that really provides a lot of the interaction that our students get with the industry. And I know you've been great from our perspective. I'm hearing another sound there, but you've been great from our perspective because you always answer the phone or answer an email when our alumni reach out to you. So thank you for doing that always. And that's really the key to our alumni is they'll answer the phone.
Yeah, of course. Actually, I remember my first class at the university.
And then let me show you some of the places where the students will work. All the different teams, the agencies like Octagon or IMG, or the tech companies like Google, like yourself, or Twitter, Facebook. We've got alumni working in all those places. So really, it's across the board. Lots of different organizations that the students work in. And we even have students who work. We're a Jesuit university, University of San Francisco. We're Jesuits, so we believe in social justice, and we try to promote that. And so we have many alumni and students who work in organizations like the Special Olympics and Run for Her, which was created by one of our alumni to generate funding for breast cancer. So we have students who do those sorts of things and alumni. And then you had asked me before we got on this, kind of what are the alumni up to, right? And so as you can see here, a lot of them do work for pro teams, or college sports in the U.S., it's a $15 billion a year industry, meaning, that $15 billion in revenue for college sports. So it's a big industry. So a lot of our alumni work there. Some of them work in technology like yourself, and as I mentioned, Twitter and Facebook and various agencies. And then these others are scattered about in health and fitness or the media industry, sporting goods, right? The golf club industry, baseball bats and so forth. And then sanctioning bodies like the NCAA or the US Olympic Committee, right? And that's really kind of a good snapshot of what our alumni are up to. And I'll kind of skip the courses, but it's a lot of core business courses, and then our electives are sort of different areas, entrepreneurship, event management, and so forth. And then we have alumni, and this is a small sample. I think we have around 150 alumni who work in sports around the world. So this is just a small sample, but you can see all over the place, right? Alumni working in Europe, in Africa, in South America, and a lot of alumni in Asia. We really do have a lot of alumni who work in Asia. And so it's really nice. And so, we kind of have our footprint all over the world.
Yeah. So when I was a student, I do remember that we had.
I can't hear you now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Can you hear?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you for some reason.
Let me try. Can you hear? Can you hear? Nope.
I'm not sure why I can't hear you. It sounds like you can hear me though, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me.
Keep talking and I'll try different speakers. I don't know. We were talking before. I don't know what happened.
Nope.
Yes.
Oh, good. Oh, gosh. That always happens. San Francisco and Tokyo. I'm glad, yeah, we are back now. Yeah, so when I was student, I do remember we had a, leadership critical thinking class. And then we are required to do informational interview through LinkedIn or phone, emails, whatever, we could. So I still continue to do that. And sometimes, around like May or January, when you guys started program, I get phone calls, email, message from the students and try to, talk with them how I got, my, position at the, sport industry. So I think that's pretty much highlights how University of San Francisco has, diversity, alumni and the networks, and students are working in different areas, as you explained.
Yeah, I mean, our alumni are really the cornerstone of the program because we're doing all the inside of class teaching, right? Bringing our experiences, bringing the theories, but the alumni are really helping us get all of that experience outside in the industry for the students. And that's really what we want our alumni to do, is basically help the students get experience, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, I think when I went to class, there are many, you know, people from different sport sectors, like teams or media or federations, agencies, as you explained. So how have you been, you know, dealing with this COVID-19 situations? You know, what are the voices that you heard from, you know, students who work in different sectors?
Yeah, when COVID came to the United States, and then all of a sudden we had to shut down the university and go home and teach via our computers. That was early March, and I was in the middle of class, so I literally was teaching 1 week in person, and then the next week I had to go and teach in Zoom, and so we've been stuck in this kind of Skype or Zoom world, you know, since the middle of March. And then the really, and that's not great, but that's okay. We're learning how to adopt to that, and we can talk more about that in a minute. But the real downside is what's happened with students and alumni, because the sports industry came to a grinding halt, right? It completely stopped. And we had a lot of students who lost internships or jobs, and some with alumni. And so that's been real difficult. And so we've reached out to our alumni and said, you know, can they provide any sort of internships or anything for the students while we're kind of waiting for this to get better. And one of the good things is that we've had a nice uptick from alumni in helping out our students with that. We also, you know, like baseball kicks off today in the United States, Major League Baseball. In fact, you're right, yeah. Yeah, in 40 minutes, the San Francisco Giants play the Los Angeles Dodgers, and this will be the first time in history that a woman will be one of the coaches for Major League Baseball in one of the teams, the San Francisco Giants, and that's our alumnus and your fellow alumnus, Alyssa Nacken. Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. So as these games come back, students are starting to get their internships and jobs back. And so, you know, that's what we really have to keep pushing forward.
Is there any like motivation issues for students, like having hard time to, you know, maintain motivation like athletes, you know, I think they having hard time to, you know, keep practices, training as well. So I think in terms of studying, it's kind of the same thing, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It's, yeah, the students have had a hard time focusing on their classes. As you know, the virus is not, you know, we're not doing a good job here with the coronavirus. It's spreading fast. That's got people depressed. And then we've had some, you know, we're really having a social justice moment with the killing of George Floyd, who was an African-American man up in Minnesota. And that has unleashed a real strong social justice movement. And that's been inspiring, but also stressful, I think, for a lot of people. And so you put those two things together, right? And we're Zooming our classes. And so the students at times are having a hard time focusing on their classes. I mean, it's true. And so we're starting to come up with, you know, we've been doing weekly seminars where we can have the students show up. We hold lots of office hours, kind of like this, where we can just talk. So we're really trying hard to keep the students' motivation up. And, you know, it's improved in the last couple of months since I think we've been putting all these things in place. But it is difficult for sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen USF sports management and its SNS posts, like, you know, evening chat with alumni and talk about sport industry and jobs. I think that's a great way to, you know, engage with students and keep them motivated, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
can you talk about any international students perspective? Like I think now it's hard to travel around, of course, but still I believe US is the place where you can learn a lot of things in terms of sports and businesses. So how you guys are planning to get international students, and also any comment for Japanese students who are interested in joining the program as well?
Yeah, so we just this past week, the state of California has basically told us that we're going to have to do the fall semester, online. So all the way through December. And we just launched 2 new cohorts in Orange County or in Los Angeles area and San Francisco of about 37 students each. So that's, 74 new students just showed up. About, I think almost 20 of them are international students.
Wow, 20. That's a lot.
Yeah, but we're all Zooming in. So, we're all doing this essentially, right? Like StreamYard style, right? And that's what's going to happen. And so most of those students are in their country still. When we go in person, which we, cross our fingers, right? We hope is in the spring, then those students will make their way to San Francisco and Los Angeles. But as you may or may not know, the visa issue can take time to be able to come and study here, right? And I want to be frank, I think the US is not doing a good job in welcoming international students. We as a university are, most of the universities are, but again, to be frank, our federal government is making it difficult. And so there's a lot of pushback from the schools to the federal government to basically say, look, we want to have these students come into our program and mix with our students and learn from each other, make friends and improve relations with other countries. And we think this is the best way to do it. So that's what we're trying to do, is basically we've accepted a lot of international students and we're hoping that they can show up in person as soon as it's safe to do so.
It's really cool to see, USF is standing up and, kind of to be more inclusive and trying to be more, global. I do remember when I was a student there, all faculty members and program, and also my the same cohort members, they were all like welcome and giving me really kind of family-oriented atmosphere, and I was really happy, to study there.
That's great to hear that. That's our goal.
Cool. So maybe let's move on to a little bit more business-wise COVID-19 impact. Can you talk a little bit what you do besides University of San Francisco professor work?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, all of us have our feet in the sports industry. And so I run, you mentioned my 2 companies, Sports Economics and OSKR. I have basically a sports consulting practice that focuses on economics and finance in the sports industry. So I will help, let's say, teams build new stadiums and how to pay for those. I will help work with athletes or brands on endorsements or sponsors. I've worked with, Dwayne Wade, the basketball player, Frank Thomas, a Hall of Fame football player, a baseball player. Floyd Mayweather Jr., if you're a boxing fan, I worked with him. I've worked with the Oakland Raiders and the New England Patriots, the NBA. And so I essentially just apply economics to these situations and try to help them figure out the value of things. What are the Los Angeles Lakers worth? I did that for the federal government because they wanted to know for tax purposes. And during these projects, then I come back into the classroom and I say, okay, how do we solve this problem? And how would we do this in person? And the students really get to kind of see a live case or a live example.
Cool. Many interesting stuff. So can you talk about like overview of the COVID-19 impact in the sport industry? I believe not only US, many countries have been suffering, from COVID-19, especially sports. It's like interaction is really key, right? And you have to accommodate and get lots of fans in the stadium, sell tickets or merchandise. Any revenue sources are now, I think, cut as well.
Yeah, I mean, everything shut down essentially in the US when an NBA player tested positive. Then the NBA stopped playing, which was a big deal. And then literally within a few days after that, college sports stopped. Major League Baseball decided not to go forward. And so, it all happened at once. And it's been devastating in terms of all that ticket revenue, as you mentioned, and merchandise and concessions and parking and all those revenues that occur inside of the stadium are just done. And so these teams are struggling financially. Minor League Baseball, which is like, you have Major League Baseball, then you have the leagues below. A lot of those clubs have folded. In college sports, we see them canceling some of the teams. Like a university may have 25 sports, it's canceling some of those teams. So that's been devastating. And the expectation is that ticket revenue this coming year is going to be down by 75 or 80%. So there are plans to have some fans in the stadiums kind of sitting separate, apart from each other, wearing a mask. But they expect those revenues to be down. And so everybody is counting on the media revenues, right? We can still watch on television. And so that's really what everyone's counting on at this point,
Yeah. You mentioned about the, college sports, and I have seen some news NCAA and universities cutting some minor sports. Can you comment on that as well?
Yeah, and so so there's 350 major universities in the U.S. that play college sports at at a high level. So that's a lot of schools, right?
Yeah.
And school sponsors around 20 different sports teams. Baseball, football, basketball, soccer, whatever it may be. And so that's a lot of teams, right? It's 7,000 teams.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of teams. And so we're starting to see some of the universities, because they make a lot of money off of football and men's basketball, and then a little bit off of baseball and sometimes women's basketball and so forth. But for some sports like swimming or tennis, they don't make any money off of, really. And so some of the universities are deciding to cancel those programs for now, simply because it's costing them money. But it's not that many. So with 7,000 teams, we've only seen, less than 100 by my count canceled. So far it's not as many as you might expect, right? I think everyone's kind of waiting to see if we can get out of this. And again, we're doing a poor job in the United States. As you know, everyone's watching us going, what is wrong with you guys? If we can really get out of this fairly quickly in the next few months or so, maybe the schools will feel more comfortable keeping those teams around,
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, NCAA topics, I think now NCAA are considering college students can generate money from their NIL. Is it right term? Name, images, likeness?
Yes. Yeah, so it's very strange. So in the United States, right, college sports generates, as I said earlier, $15 billion with a B, $15 billion in revenue.
That's almost the same, I think, sponsorship revenue with the Olympics one.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Close, I think.
And the athletes don't get paid. So in other words, they get a free education, which is great. And they get, food and a place to stay and training and everything, right? But the rules are that they're not allowed to get paid more than that, right? And so I've been working for over 20 years now. I've done research, I've testified in lawsuits, trying to push forward the idea that the athletes should be allowed to earn money. No one has to pay them, but if somebody wants to pay them, what's wrong with that, right? And so we've reached a state or a point in time where the state of California and the state of Florida and a number of our states have passed laws basically saying that the schools have to allow the athletes to do what you said, which is take their name, image, and likeness and market it. So basically, appear in commercials or go on social media and post things and get paid for that, right? Or have their jersey with their name on the back sold, right? All those are appear in video games, right? There's college football is a very popular video game, or it was, until it was canceled because of the athletes were in there. And so that's going to happen, I believe, within the next year. And I think you're going to see some athletes, like, I don't know if you know Zion Williamson, right? He was the star who came out of Duke last year and was in the NBA. He probably could have earned $1 million in college just doing, commercials, or Nike would have, paid him that much to wear their shoes or something like that. And so there's going to be some athletes, I think, who make a lot. And then there'll be a lot of athletes who make a little bit, but a little bit could still be $10,000, in a year. And for a college student, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's and they're really going to be relying, I think, a lot on social media to promote themselves. And so we're seeing like all these companies now that are training the athletes on how to build their brand on social media. So it's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah. So I think during COVID-19, we have seen many students, the athletes, posting many contents on SNS like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And that's a great way, to engage with fans directly, right? And you can brand yourself and, do branding yourself and maybe get endorsement. So that's another way of generating money for athletes. And we know that athletes career is not like really secured. If you get injured or if you cannot play game, you probably will not get, money, right?
Right.
So do you think this COVID-19 situation will help this, NCAA case to pass certain point?
Do I think the COVID-19 is going to affect the name, image, and likeness?
Yeah, like if that can be more considerable for NCAA and college students can make money from that.
Yeah, so what's happening now, I think, because nobody's playing, because they're not allowed to because of because of COVID-19, you see the athletes organizing themselves a bit. They're pushing, just 2 days ago, or was it yesterday, there was a Senate, United States government, a hearing on this topic, right? And some of that is happening because the athletes are pushing this forward right now. The other issue that the athletes are worried about is if they go back and start playing football in the end of August or September, and they get sick from COVID-19, the athletes are wondering, why are they being, kind of forced to play football when, say, the rest of the students are all going to be at home Zooming.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another big topic that's happening right now in the U.S. is the college athletes are questioning whether they should even be playing sports at all. Because as you had mentioned, there's contact, right? You're playing football, you're playing basketball, right? You're water polo, you're essentially touching each other and potentially spreading the disease. So, there's discussions about having tennis, which we see now, professional tennis happening, right? and professional golf is happening because the players can stay apart from each other. So those kind of individual sports seem to be, more capable of playing through this disease.
Got you. I think students now need to think about, student athletes need to think about how they can, do branding and, be strategic about, SNS posting as well, right? So from universal point of view, do you think now there's a needs or requirement, not requirement, but needs, to take the kind of classes like, SNS, being strategic about SNS branding or something like that?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. So as I was saying, there's a bunch of companies. One of them's called Influencer, one of them's called Open Doors, and there's a bunch of others. These companies are basically going into these colleges and they're working with the athletes and training them on how to be brand influencers, right? So these classes are happening, and they're not really formal classes, right? Now I'm part of a new company called LIVEATHON, which is like athletics and education combined, LIVEATHON. And we are offering courses right now this summer at UCLA. We have students from all over the country taking courses. And one of the courses that we're offering is essentially a social media brand management course. And we have college athletes taking that course, and it's teaching them how to manage their own brand. So I think it's a valuable tool that the athletes can learn, both as an academic discipline, but also then as a way to make money,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next topic, which is a more professional sports. As you mentioned before, now many sports leagues cannot play, full capacity, the number of games, no audiences. Do you see any impact from that? And I believe sponsorship revenue is like most kind of discussion point.
Yeah, so there's lots of impacts, right? So we talked a little bit about, like, say, ticket revenue and things like that. Teams are working really hard. I was talking today to an alumnus who's an executive at the Golden State Warriors, right? They just built the Chase Center for, $1 billion, right? And they're not making any money, right? And they're losing money every month. They're trying to find ways to engage with their fans. And so I think some of the teams that are playing right now in the NBA that will start basically next week, in Major League Baseball and so forth, they're trying to find ways to engage with their fans. And so one of the ways is using VR technology, right, where you put on the headset and you can kind of watch the game closer. There are companies where you can cheer really loud, and they're organizing all that sound and they're putting it into the arena so the players can hear it. So there's ways, like, they're trying to make ways for the fans to engage with the athletes and with the teams. But I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to take a lot of creativity to make that kind of satisfying for the fan,
Yeah, definitely. Because before COVID-19, I think the business model was basically get fans and people in the stadium, and you put premium share or members seat or something like that. And then now suddenly you cannot get revenue from that, and then you put content online or do media exposure, like media activity. I think now people have to think how they can create premium watching experience so that maybe teams or league can generate money from that.
Yeah, so it's fascinating, right? So there's a lot of fans who watch on TV in the United States, right? The media dollars are really high, but they can make more money like they do inside of an arena where you said premium seating and you know those premium seats are real expensive, and you get special perks, right? Special access. If they can find ways to do that online, right? In other words, if I paid extra money, could I get the VR view of the game? Could I get special commentary, say from one of the coaches who would talk throughout the game to whoever else paid, you know, $20 or whatever, you know, $20 to watch. So I do think they can create premium offerings. I just don't think that they were prepared. you know, we didn't know this was going to happen, right? So it's taking time, I think, for them to develop those technologies. You know?
Yeah, I think technology and data will help sports connect with fans, right? So now you see many sports contents online, like SNS or internet, and it's hard to find like really good contents and engaging contents. So now probably professional teams, they have to be strategic about what kind of contents they put online and how they're gonna engage, how they're gonna charge. Maybe some of the content should be like free, but some premium content should be like subscription, or you can charge from the fans. So that's another revenue stream, I think. Right?
Yeah, and even some of the content that's not the game itself, right? So obviously people want to watch the game, but for instance, some of the NBA teams in the U.S. have had allowed their season ticket holders to do workouts with some of the players, online. So a player is maybe on their stationary bike and they're pedaling along, right? And at home pedaling along, and I'm talking to them, and there's 1,000 of us or whatever, 500 people. So that kind of premium offering, it's not the game itself, but it's letting the fan interact with the athlete and understand the athlete's training regimen, or just a little bit about their life. I think that's continuing to rise a lot here in the U.S.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
How about I wanted to ask these questions. How about like globalization of, let's say, NFL or Major League Baseball, NBA, any American sports? Because now, because of the COVID-19 impact, people cannot go to stadium. But at the same time, you can be really connected online. Digital, you can connect it. So meaning maybe you have the chance to do marketing for Japan market or China or European countries, right? Do you see any trend like expanding the market right now? Probably right now it's hard, but I think that can be one of the directions that they can go.
Yeah, so it's real interesting to think about international sport from the U.S. perspective. So, as you know, there's NBA China, right? There's an organization in China owned by the NBA, right? They mostly have just made money selling media rights throughout Asia, right? So they're just making money. And when a player from Asia comes and plays in the U.S., then they can sell those rights for a bit more, right? That's been the sort of simple model of globalization for say the NBA or Major League Baseball. But now they're trying to go beyond that. And so one of the leagues will end up in Mexico City probably within the next 5, maybe 10 years, but probably within the next 5 years. And part of that is because travel is pretty close, right? So they can fly down and play games and things like that. The NFL, as you know, the Jacksonville Jaguars owner, he's interested in he won't say this publicly, but he says it privately. He's interested in maybe moving his team to London. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, so he would go to London, and then he would come to the U.S. and they would play, like 2 games, like on 2 Sundays. So yeah, see, the advantage of the NFL is you play 1 game a week. So you can fly to the U.S., play a game, stay for a week and train, play another game, and then fly home and play 2 games at home. And so then it wouldn't be too much back and forth, right? And so right now the NFL plays games in London, but they just take 2 teams and they go play a game in London, and then they take 2 more teams a few weeks later and they play another game in London, right? So I can see that happening. But so that's maybe like step 2. Step 1 is just get players from other countries and then market back to those countries, right? Step 2 is maybe have a team in another country, in Europe or Mexico. Asia is, I think, people are thinking that's too far at this point, for that. But then step 3 that is happening, if you think about the 2 most popular, like the most popular sport in the world is soccer, right?
Yeah.
Or football, not American football, right? But basketball is very popular in many countries, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised if that 3rd level is the NBA goes to Europe, right? Or goes to Asia and creates a league called NBA Europe, NBA Asia, and they build teams in that area. And those teams play, and they occasionally fly to the United States and play, and you end up with a true global league where they play championship. The European champion plays the Asian champion, and U.S. champion or whatever, right? And they have some sort of thing. Because if they don't do that, if the NBA doesn't do that, European basketball and basketball in certain countries in Asia is going to keep growing, and they're going to start getting players from the NBA, and it's going to be like soccer in Europe, right? Where you've got the 5 big leagues, right? England, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, and they're all outbidding each other for players, and some of the teams are losing money because it's so expensive, right? So it's in the NBA's interest to basically stop that from happening and start their own league in Europe or in Asia or both. So I think that's like the 3rd level of kind of the globalization of American sports.
I think it's very interesting because in Japan we have Japan Football League J League and also B League Basketball League. They are trying to go mainly Asia because there are lots of populations and the sports fans. And already they have some players from Thailand or, recently B League, I think, signed with #1 Filipino college player. And by the way, Philippines has like big basketball community there. So I think we are going, from stage 1 to maybe stage 2, COVID-19 situations, like single location, tournament league, like NBA is doing. Right. Maybe you go to Japan or go to China or Philippines, do some league or events. It might work. I don't know, but that would be really cool to see.
Yeah, and so I mentioned one of your fellow alums, Ryan Ghazali. He created college sport, the NCAA of Indonesia, right? And so he's running that now, and he's got universities and teams, and they play each other. He's got them, they're on TV and everything. But now his idea is to create a pan-Asian or across different Asian countries, colleges and universities playing each other, during the season. So, you have the World University Games and you have the Asian University Games. It's not that, because that's like a one event, right? But it's teams constantly playing each other across in other countries.
Wow.
As a way to grow the sport, create rivalries, expose these different universities to other people in other countries and everything. So that's interesting. I mean, again, he's pushing that himself, and he's got some partners in other countries that are helping him. So I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, that can be really new trend, like you understand the situation restriction that we are getting from COVID-19. But at the same time, when you look at like positive side, we have really digitally connected world.
Yes. Yes, I mean, you and I probably, I don't know if you guys would have put this on. Maybe you would have, but would you have done the LIVEATHON had it not been for COVID-19? Who knows, right? I mean, I'm finding I'm talking to alumni more than I had before because we're just jumping in a room like this and we're talking, and it's been great. I mean, that's the silver lining, right? That's the that's the positive part. Yeah.
Definitely. So we are getting time. Let's move on to the last part. Last year, KO SDM Sports X program flew to University of San Francisco and had some field study. And by the way, KO SDM is basically system design management. I think that's a new concept in the sport industry, how you can apply this design thinking or system management, because sport industry is pretty much complicated structure. Many, stakeholders like sponsors, teams, players, federations, media. Do you see any like potential of the system design management? Maybe that can be good for University of San Francisco program, or I don't know.
I actually agree with you a lot. I think, and in fact, I feel like this COVID-19 situation would lend itself to using systems design management as a creative way to figure out what to do. So, thinking about who is my user? Do I understand them? What assumptions am I making about what they need? And basically, using SDM to try out different, this is a chance to try things out, to see what works, right? So trying out different technologies, different ways of engaging fans. I do think that it's not happening. Like, in other words, it's so new, I think, to the sports industry in the US. But it is happening in the technology industry. It's happening in manufacturing a little bit. It's happening in consumer products. And I think you've given me a really good idea that maybe if we can offer a course right now, we can really be ahead of the curve on applying system design management to the sports industry. I think that's a great idea. So,
yeah.
Thank you for that.
Of course.
You're right. It's a creative way to be able to push the industry forward, I think.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, USF students are planning to come to Japan actually this March.
Yes.
And, to learn about like Olympics or, any Japanese sports and cultures. But because of COVID-19, we got canceled the trip. How you guys adapted the situation and, any, the direction that you took?
Yeah, I mean, it was really unfortunate, as you know, because I know you were a part of that. I know that Nola Aga, she was one of the professors that you saw in the video you showed, right? She was putting together a group of students to come over, and a number of alumni were going to engage with her and everything. And unfortunately, she had to cancel it because of COVID-19. So she ran the course as an online course and had, guest speakers and had some interaction with the folks in Japan. But the plan, of course, is next year, a year from now, or I suppose next March, she plans to have that class in Japan. We're crossing our fingers, right? We hope that works. But I think her idea for what the class was great, and it's really unfortunate that it didn't happen.
Cool. Oh, I think we got some questions.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we can take one or two.
Okay.
Can you see the question? It would be great if you shared interesting sponsorship activation conducted in this situation in US.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. So let me think about that. A sponsorship activation. One of the sponsors for the Golden State Warriors is Ring Central, which is a audio, voice, and video technology company. They're the ones who decided to put together the training where some of the fans and some of the employees of the Warriors get to essentially work out with some players. Yeah, and so that was sponsored by them, and it's an activation by them. To me, that's a pretty easy one, right? But it's a great one, I think, because people get to interact with the players a little bit, right? That's the best one I've seen. So Major League Soccer, you see them, sometimes they've had the fans show up on the boards, you know, and that's being sponsored, and the camera's showing the sponsorship a lot. So it's kind of I think a pretty good activation there, you know.
I think how to engage with fans is really critical now, right?
Yeah.
Go the other question. Maybe last one. We have 5 minutes to go.
Okay. Oh, I see that. Yeah. So right now the New York Mets of Major League Baseball, the owners are trying to sell the team. Earlier this year in January, they were offered $2.6 billion and they said no. It wasn't enough, right? Mm-hmm. Now they've got 4 groups of buyers, and it sounds like the current offers that are happening are around $2.2 billion. So it's gone down $400 million. You know, they should have sold in January. Of course, they didn't know COVID was going to happen, I suppose. But yeah, so and then the other estimates, and Forbes releases those every year. It looks like what's happening is enough people think that this is going to be over. And so a year or two from now, we'll be back to normal. And so you're only seeing valuations drop a little bit. But, you know, none of us are I mean, I'm not a scientist, right? I don't know if we're going to get a vaccine or what. And so other people think that it's not going to end so easily. Fewer fans are going to come to events in the future, and so then the values are going to drop even more, you know, 20%, something like that. So we'll see. It's a really interesting question. You know, I mean, it's a great question.
Yeah, I have one more, maybe last question. Okay. What do you think of sports betting?
Oh, it's been big in other countries for a long time. It's been kind of big here, but not too much. But our federal government, our Supreme Court, right, has decided that it should be allowed throughout the country. And so that's starting to happen now. Just as it was starting to happen, COVID hit, you know, it's only been allowed for like the past year. I think it's going to get huge in the future in the United States, and not just in dollars, but I think it creates a different sort of fan engagement.
Yeah.
Some fans that may not be that interested in the game might be interested in an individual player. We have a professor who teaches a class for us who owns a company that puts together these sort of in-game bets, right? Where, you know, I bet that the next guy is going to strike out, or I bet that Steph Curry is going to hit a 3, right? And you can place that bet really fast. He provides all the odds and all that sort of stuff. And he says that, you know, his phone's been ringing off the hook for the past, you know, year since the federal government allowed this. So I think it's going to take off in the U.S.
Also, I think because of the COVID-19 situations, you know, more online and the more engagement we need, you know, through contents, and, you know, sports betting can be really another revenue source for sports entities.
Yes, I think you're right.
All right, so I think we are running out of time. Thank you so much, Professor Dan Rocha. It's really great to talk with you and learn about U.S. sports. And hopefully we can visit San Francisco soon. And I hope you can come to Tokyo for next year Olympics.
Yes, Yuta, thank you so much for having me. And I really do. We had a great time hosting you guys last year. You brought us a lot of great students who asked a lot of great questions. And hopefully you can do that again. And hopefully we can send our group out next year to Tokyo. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.